Good to see everybody here. The regular council meeting for Tuesday, December 14th, 2021 is called to order at 7:02 p.m. Madam Clerk, we're going to do silent meditation, pledge of allegiance, then we'll do your roll call. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you very much, Madam Clerk. May I please have roll call, please?
Roll call, Mayor Nickerson.
Here.
Vice Mayor Erbaum.
Present.
Councilperson Perella.
Here.
Councilperson Lightfoot Ward.
Here.
Darren Martin's not here yet. Also present for the record, Janice Jacoby, Village Clerk, Christy Alou, Village Manager, Chief Mendez, and Geller's running late.
Okay. Thank you very much, Madam Clerk. I appreciate it. Next, we're going to move on to approve of the agenda. I do have some kind of adjustments that I do want to make. First of all, I don't know if I see Miss Fortune. Is Miss Fortune here? No, I don't think I see. I saw them walk in. Okay. And what about Miss Jean? Diana? Yes, okay. Hi, how are you doing? All right. Wait 1 second. I'm going to get right to you. So we'll start off with that. I want to move the resolution for the village-wide text notification service. I want to switch that with the short-term rental standards and regulations ordinance. So I want to, when we get to resolutions and ordinances, I want to get to the short-term rental standards and regulations first, and then we'll do the sign standards, and then we'll do the resolution for the village-wide text notification service. Okay. Yeah, I'm gonna make I1 I3 and make I3 I1. So we'll do it like that. Councilperson Lockwood?
Any particular reason why?
Because for I3, we do have a lot of residents that are here, and they're waiting to speak. And I usually try to set up the agenda to where when we have guests or visitors, I try to do them first. The village-wide text notification service, we have no guests or visitors for that particular item. So.
Very well said.
No problem. Thank you very much, Councilperson Lightfoot. That's my only adjustments. If I'm hearing nothing else for approval of the agenda, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Very good. Actually, do I have a motion to approve the agenda?
Yeah, I'll move to approve the agenda as amended.
Motion moved by Vice Mayor Erbaum. Do I have a second? Second by Councilperson Lightfoot. All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed say nay. All right, hearing none, moving right along. The first thing we're going to do is acknowledgement of visitors and or special presentations. For F1, it's going to be adjusted some. Let me come up here real quick. Give me a second. And I know some from the council are going to want to probably say some words, but I'll get this started off. So for F1, I have it down to where what I do want to do, and I'm going to move this to January, but what I do want to do is I want to really recognize individuals throughout El Portal, residents who have passed on throughout the past year. The reason why I'm going to move this is because a couple of days ago, what ended up happening was that we unfortunately had another El Portal resident who passed away. And that individual, she lives right back here, right in Sherwood Forest. And it was crazy because I was walking, I was delivering flyers, and I saw her from across the street.
Whoa, 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 stop, man. Stop everything. Let's put a mat down, somebody else is gonna sleep.
Is everything okay? You okay, attorney? Well, we know we need our attorney, so we can't have nothing.
As long as you
Good-
didn't hit your head.
It's a little slippery by the door there, sorry.
Let's get something out there.
Yeah. No, you're good. You're good. You're never an interruption. So what happened was a couple of days ago, you guys, I was walking and I was delivering some flyers, and I saw her from across the street, and she said hi. She waved to me like normally when I see anybody, and she waved hi. And then she kept walking, but I just started to notice that she just kept her head down. She was just wiping her eyes and wiping her eyes, and she's usually a very, very, very happy individual. And so we were walking in opposite directions. And so, but when I saw that, I ran back to catch her. Instinct, right? Councilperson Lightfoot, I ran back to catch her, and as soon as I caught up to her, she just looked at me and she said, "Mayor, my mom just died." And she just fell into my arms and just started weeping. My whole shoulder was wet, just started crying. And so I hugged her for maybe like 5-6 minutes. It was a pretty long time. I just stood there and I just hugged her. We were right out here, right over here in Sherwood Forest. And I told her, I said, what's interesting about this is that I was going to, read off a proclamation for all the residents who have passed. I said, and I already told their family members, if they wanted to come out, they're free to come out. If they want to say something about them, after I read the names or while I'm reading the names, they're free to come out and say something. And she was like, "Mayor, I really want to be there." She said, "But I have to bury my mother." She said, "I'm just not ready to be there yet." I said, "No problem." I said, "No problem." I said, "We can hold this off. No problem, not an issue." And I spoke to some of the other individuals. They said they're starting to travel a little bit. They said, so it'll even work out even better. So I'm going to move that. But the reason why I kept that on here, and you guys will really appreciate this, particularly Councilperson Lightfoot Ward and Attorney Geller, who's also a state representative, is because last week what I did go to was I went to Congresswoman Carrie Meek's funeral. And I wanted to talk about that briefly. And if anybody else had anything they want to say, you guys are free to come up and say anything that you want to. But Congressperson, you guys might have saw it on the news. You guys might have heard about it. But Congressperson Carrie Meek, Councilperson Lightfoot Ward, many of us wouldn't even be up here if it wasn't for her.
I know. Keep going. This one was hard for me.
It's hard for all of us. You guys have to understand that, and I'm going to let you have a Councilperson Lightfoot Ward and Attorney Geller. You guys have to understand that when you have individuals that are such of historical significance, and when you hear about certain things, and in your mind you're thinking that these things happened so long ago and so much has changed since then, but then you hear things like this. Because see, in 1992, Congressperson Meek was the first African-American lawmaker to represent Florida in the Congress since the Reconstruction of the Civil War. When you think about things like that, when you think about things like the Reconstruction era of the Civil War, the Jim Crow era, and things like that, you think about how they're so far off. But to think that she was the first African American to serve in the Florida Congress since the Reconstruction of the Civil War, when you think about all she went through, when you think about how Councilperson Lightfoot Ward, Attorney Geller, when she went to college, in Florida law, when she went to college, because of the segregation laws,
She could not.
she denied. She had to go to Michigan.
That's right.
I don't want to make this too long. I know you guys are here. Councilperson Lightfoot Ward, Attorney Geller, you're a state rep. I know you served. So you guys can go ahead and jump right in.
Let me defer first to the council person, but I do want to say something after.
Mayor, you kindly do so. I'm going to stay where I am.
Of course.
I'm not going to talk much. It's very personal, very familiar, very emotional for me, but we all know we got to go. She was a beautiful person. Better than that, she was my mentor. I came back before I left Florida, before I got a degree, before I even knew what college was supposed to be about, and yet I worked at FIU. Carrie Meek was one of the first among them that tapped me on the shoulder. Come here, baby. Just like that. Come here, baby. What you mean you working in the library here at FIU? You got a degree? No, ma'am. You need to get a degree, and you need to get it real soon. And I'm your auntie from this point forward. See, Joe just put his hands up because he knows what I'm talking about. No matter where I was, no matter what I was doing, she wanted to know how I was doing and how my family was doing. Better than that, if I was in a crowd, she'd make sure people knew I was in that crowd. She would make sure that I understood the civic responsibility. She is one of half a dozen people that is the reason I'm the way I am today. I know I act a little bullish, but I got that from my mentors. I know I'm pretty persistent about what should and should not be, but I got that from my mentors. I know that it's not right to carry on something you know should not be made into law. I know that the people who are going to be impacted are the most important, not us up here. The people are going to be much impacted by what we do. These are the kinds of things that Carrie gave to me, and as I say, this is personal. This is not just a person I'm talking about. It's a person who loved me and I loved her. And I could call Ma Carrie. She said, no, I'm Mom. I'm Mom. And she didn't know my mother, but I knew Carrie Meek. I didn't just know her. Anywhere I was, Washington, D.C., the state capitol, no matter where I was, if she was there, come here, baby. You're coming in with me. It's my grandchild. It's my grandniece. I called her auntie. She called me niece. I didn't plow into that huge funeral because I remember she said, don't be kind of give me my flowers when I'm there. You give them to them now. You give them to me now. Because if you don't show up, that'd be all right with me. But it was devastating for me to hear, but I already knew. She was very frank with me. I'm sick. I didn't retire from Congress just because I needed to retire. I hope you make it here someday. That's not an aspiration of mine, you all, but she was a dear, dear family person to me. Thank you.
Thank you, Council President. Attorney Gill.
I'll also be brief. Thank you, Mayor. And I want to just start by thanking our police department there for lifting me up off the ground. I appreciate that. That was very nice of you. It was not so easy to get up as it was to get down, so I really do appreciate that very much. I knew, if you'll forgive me if I call her Carrie because she was my friend, I knew Carrie for a long time. She first took office upon the tragic death of a real, also pioneering trailblazer by the name of Gwen Cherry,
Oh, yeah.
who was a legislator and a trailblazer and died in a tragic car accident up in Tallahassee. And I got to know Sister Carrie pretty well. I was chairman of the Democratic Party when they redrew the lines in '92 to seat her as the first, and at the same time my other friend, Alcee Hastings, and then a woman up in Jacksonville named Corinne Brown. 3 when there had been none. Carrie was an organizer. She was a strategizer. But most importantly, she was a great human being who cared about other people. She was a fighter. She made a difference. She made a difference when she was in the legislature. She went to Congress at an age when most people thought it was past the point in her life to be starting a congressional career. But boy, she made a difference up there because she was always a moral voice. I spent a lot of time with her. I was in a lot of rooms with her. We planned and plotted a lot of stuff together. She had a great team. She is dearly missed. She had kind of a long illness at the end. It's a while since she stepped down from Congress in favor of her son Kendrick, but she was one of a kind, and I'll tell you, we will not see her like again. I was able to get out to the wake over there at Miami-Dade North, where she had a career as an educator too. So she is dearly and deeply missed. There's nobody was like her. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, everybody. I was there at the funeral. I did represent El Portal, and so the family was very thankful of that. So, thank you. Moving on, you guys. The next thing that I want to say is I want to give congratulations, kind of turn the page and something a little bit more festive. Miss Jean, come on up with your family. I know your mom's here, I believe, and is your mom? Who else is here? Your sister? Is your sister here? Your dad? Yes, come on up. I spoke to Mr. Jean on the phone. Come on up, Mr. Jean. I spoke to Mr. Jean on the phone, and we were texting. We were speaking on the phone, and so this right here, you guys. The reason why Diana, how you doing? Good to see you. And so she was at Horace Mann, and she was the outstanding last year. She was the outstanding. Come on up, the whole family. Come on up, all of you. Come on, Mom. Come on, Dad. Come on, Mr. G. Come on, little sister. She was the #1 outstanding individual as far as academic achievement last year. Yes, #1 as far as academic achievement. So I just wanted to, because Horace Mann is an El Portal, I wanted to reach out and have her here. I think Councilperson Perella has something that also that he wants to present to her. But I wanted to reach out, have her here. I have something I'm going to present to her because Horace Mann is an El Portal. And so I think that, as far as, anybody who knows me, you guys know how I am. I'm all about outreach and unity and things like that. So I'm trying to, establish just a communication and establish a relationship that's a stronger relationship between El Portal and Horace Mann Middle School. And so that's why I wanted to have you here, and thank you for being here. If you want to say anything, you can say something. You good? she's like, well, I do want to say thank you, Mr. Jean, for organizing this and bringing the whole family out. We do appreciate this. I'm going to give you your plaque, and I'm going to read it to you, okay? Give me 1 second. No, 1 second. Don't go anywhere.
What was the academic achievement? What's your GPA? What's your GPA? Wow. Okay.
Here, this, first of all, is for you. And it says, "It is with distinguished honor that Horace Mann Middle School proudly presents you with this overall Academic Achievement Award 2021. Thank you for your unwavering dedication to our school and educational system." And it has the Village of El Portal seal on the top. And so we just want to say that sometimes, you guys, when you're talking about young people, within our society, young people within our city, within our state, it's so easy for young people today to be distracted, right? Through social media, through, some people are into video games, through all type of things. And so for somebody to be so dedicated to stick with it to where they achieve so much academically, I think in this day and time is even harder than it's ever been before with all distractions. So I think this is something that really, really should be applauded. So we really do appreciate you. We have something else for you that Councilperson Perella is going to give to you. Give me 1 second.
Well, hello, everyone. Well, first of all, thank you, Mr. Mayor, for putting this together. It's great to recognize, the good work of students at the school is great. I hope this continues. And it's just a little something to congratulate you and recognize your work. And I hope you keep the work, keep going. Okay, thank you. Take care.
All right, we'll just get a picture real quick. We'll get a picture real quick. You guys come to the front. Come up to the front over here. right, you guys. Thank you very much, and thank you for bearing with us for everybody here. I know the short-term rental, trust me, we're going to get to it. It's going to be well worth it, you guys, when we get to it. This is the last meeting of the year, so we do have the last few meetings we've had to do awards and things like that. Next up, Chief, our brand new Chief Mendez. Come on up. It is on you, my brother. It is your time to shine.
Chief Mendez.
Ladies and gentlemen, good evening.
Good evening.
I'm very happy to be taking part in the swearing in of our two newest members of our Village of El Portal Police Department. Without further ado, Carlos Vives. I,
Carlos Vivas,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support,
that I will support,
protect, and defend
protect, and defend
the Constitution of the United States of America
the Constitution of the United States of America
and of the state of Florida,
and of the state of Florida,
and that I will, in all respects,
and that I will in all respects
observe the provisions
observe the provisions
of the Constitution of the state of Florida
of the Constitution of the state of Florida
and the Charter of the Village of El Portal,
and the Charter of the Village of El Portal,
and that I will faithfully
that I will faithfully
discharge the duties
discharge the duties
of which I'm about to enter.
which I'm about to enter.
I do further swear that
I do further swear that
I will faithfully serve and protect,
I will faithfully serve and protect,
to the best of my ability,
to the best of my ability,
all citizens,
all citizens,
regardless of race,
regardless of race,
color, or creed.
color, or creed.
I accept the law enforcement code of ethics
I accept the law enforcement code of ethics
as my standard of conduct
as a standard of conduct
while on and off duty,
while on and off duty,
and swear to faithfully abide by
swear
and
to
defend the
faithfully
same.
and
And defend the
defend
same.
the same.
Ladies and gentlemen, Officer Carlos Vives. Ladies and gentlemen, Daniel Sano.
I, Daniel Sano,
Do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support,
that I will support,
protect, and defend
protect, and defend
the Constitution of the United States of America
the Constitution of the United States of America
and of the state of Florida,
and of the state of Florida,
and that I will in all respects
and then I will in all respect
observe the provisions
observe the provisions
of the Constitution of the state of Florida
the Constitution of the state of Florida,
and Charter of the Village of El Portal,
the Charter of the Village of El Portal,
and that I will faithfully discharge
and that I will faithfully discharge
the duties of which I'm about to enter.
the duty of which I'm about to enter.
I do further swear that
I do further swear that
I will faithfully serve and protect,
I will faithfully serve and protect,
to the best of my ability,
to the best of my ability,
all citizens,
all citizens,
regardless of race,
regardless of race,
color, or creed.
color, or creed.
I accept the law enforcement code of ethics
I accept the Code of Law Enforcement and Ethics
as my standard of conduct
as my standard of conduct
while on and off duty,
while on and off duty,
and swear to faithfully abide
and swear to faithfully abide
by and defend the same.
and defend the same. Thank
Officer
you.
Vives.
All right, you two don't go anywhere. You two don't go anywhere because we're going to take a picture and we're going to have your family come up so the family can take a picture with you, families and friends, so we can all take a picture. Let me just say this real quickly, you guys. I just want to give a special thanks to Chief Mendez. You know, there's certain things, and the manager knows this. There's certain things that we've been trying to do. There's certain things that has been planned for so long. There's certain things, and the chief will tell you. Even when he was a lieutenant, I used to hold full meetings with the full police department. I would call meetings with the full police department right back here, right, Chief? And we'd talk about the different things that I wanted to see kind of like get done. And it was before it was and we always had great leadership, but before, it was just seemed like it was kind of difficult. Chief Mendez came in and hit the ground running, y'all. I'm talking about things that, Madam Manager,
Yeah, as chief.
Madam Manager, and we already got 2 cops. And my manager, you are, we're not going to say, but you already know how long I was talking about that. And so just for the residents, you guys, for all of you who have for such a long time been talking about how many cops we have and talking about more safety at nighttime, and Madam Manager, we're not done. Like, we have more, Chief. We're like, there's going to be some more swearing in coming pretty soon. Put it that way. So all the safety that the residents have been asking for, we're putting it in place. I mean, action speaks louder than words. Thank you, Chief. All right, thank you, Chief. Yes, those $5. All right, we appreciate it. Thank you, you guys. Thank you. Let's get the officers up here. First, let's get the officers with Chief and the council, and then we'll have the officers, Chief, council, then we'll get their family members up. All right. Back here. All right, so next is good and welfare, you guys. This is a time right here where if anybody has anything that you want to say about the agenda itself, you can come up and say your name and address for the record and say your piece. You also, for each additional item we do, we also have a time where you can come up and talk then also. So if you don't want to do it right now, you'll get another chance. All right, seeing none, moving right along. Next is the consent agenda. This is the approval for, in our current consent agenda, we have the approval for the minutes from October 26th and the minutes for November 16th. This is a consent agenda. Do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
I'll move it.
Do I have a second for approval, consent agenda?
I didn't even hear what you asked. My apologies.
We're on the consent agenda, item G, and I'm just asking for a motion, a second for the consent agenda, which are the two.
Before we do that,
Yes.
notice that E, acknowledgement of visitors, Madam Clerk needs to make sure the notice is that it's E, acknowledgement of visitors and special presentations, not F1. It's actually was E1 through E4. I just want to put that on the record, because we noticed it up here.
Okay.
Now we're on F, and you're asking for what?
We're on G,
G. We're on
consent
G.
agenda.
The consent, you need that approved.
Mhm,
Notice that
I-
it too is labeled incorrectly.
Yeah.
So make that notation, because when you asked for the corrections on the agenda at the beginning, I hadn't presented it. I'm gonna take that one. Approval of the minutes, did you already ask that E1 and 2?
E1 and 2, I have a motion for the consent agenda. I'm looking for a second.
Second.
Second by Councilperson Lightfoot Ward, motion by Vice Mayor Erbaum. All in favor for the consent agenda for passing, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed, say nay. Hearing none, moving on. H is the agenda item. All right, you guys, so remember this came out of the committee. This is the Vice Mayor Charter Amendment, should the Vice Mayor position be elected by the village residents. So this came out of the Administration and Finance Committee meeting. And so I kept this on here, like I told you guys last time, that if I felt like it was too expensive, I pull it off myself. But I wanted to at least pass it through so that we can get the factual information just to see where we would be at. And so where we would be at is this. And I'm going to tell you why I'm probably going to end up pulling it. Where we would be at is this. So it would be $320 if this would go on the ballot. It would be $320 to translate to Spanish and Creole. We have registered voters 1,604. That 1,604 would be multiplied by anywhere from about like 50 cents per voter, which would come out to $1,122 on top of it would come out to, including the $320, it would come out to a total of $1,122 if the election department charged us for 50 cents per voter. It could go up to 75 cents per voter if the election department charged us 75 cents per voter. With the $320 of the translations that have to be done, the total price would be $1,523. That would be the price if we had on the upcoming ballot in 2022, if we had individuals running on the ballot. If we did not have individuals running on the ballot, then we would probably have to do a special election. And that's where it gets costly. What I would say right now, I would say that, even though I think this is something that's very important, that the vice mayor position is elected by the village residents. So our choice is this. We could either put it through, or since it's a charter amendment, what we could do is we can go through and have a full charter review, let's say in the next year. And then we can see if there's anything else that we want to change, right? Because I know Councilperson Perella, there was things that he wanted to change also. And then we can see from whatever we come out of the charter review, whatever we might want to alternate, and then we look at the full price for everything, and then we decide from there.
Excuse me, the charter is up for review anyway, right?
The charter is up for review also, yes.
Why is it up for review?
Because we have to go through a charter review after a certain amount of time.
And is that time frame now, or does it happen all the time?
No, so the time frame happens, I believe, is every 10 years?
10 years.
Is it 10 years? Yeah, every 10 years.
Sorry, I wasn't
So
here.
were we good, or did we do anything 10 years ago?
So 10 years ago,
How far are we from that 10-year mark is what I'm asking?
we're basically at that 10-year mark.
Okay,
Mhm.
very good.
Yeah, right now. So I think just to make it simple, we could probably just hold off and do a full charter review, and then we could see at that particular time what we want to do, Vice Mayor Urban, or anybody from the council, whatever, would say.
So then that would be in mind to have this sorted essentially ahead of the 2024 election, is that right? Okay.
So anything, so for example, let's say if this is how it works. So let's say if this would pass tonight, we're going to move it to the charter review, but let's say if this went through and it passed tonight, that the village residents would elect the vice mayor position from here on out. Okay, if it passed tonight, then it would be on the 2022 ballot. If the residents, because anything charter has to be approved by the residents. If the residents voted yes, we believe that going from here on out, the vice mayor position should be elected by the village residents, as I believe it should. If that passed in 2022, then that wouldn't kick in until 2024.
See, that doesn't make sense.
So whatever election, whatever ballot it has to go to see if it passes or not, and which is good because ultimately the residents get the final say. Residents might be like, no, we want the vice mayor position to continue to be chosen by the council. I don't think that's a good thing, but they might think that if they can kill that on that ballot. So at the end of the day, it's up to the residents. You know, we can pass it through, but the residents decide on the ballot at the end of the day. All right? All right, you guys. Any last questions or comments about this?
Mitt,
Yes, Attorney Geller.
One quick word on it, as, you know, I rewrote the charter when we moved from our like 1950s charter that was way out of date, and we have a charter that was new, and I think it was 2002. So that's how come we're coming up every 10 years, and we're due for the new one. We have plenty of time for that next ballot, but I do want to give just one word of advice to the council. It's always important to get citizens' input, and I'm sure that whatever process you have will provide for citizens' input. But council, be sure that you keep the final word on it with the council, because you are the ones who have experience with the council functions. And so, I understand that every member of this council defers to the public, but you'll get input from the public and the front end, and ultimately, at the back end, the final decision is still with the public. But please be sure you keep control of what you're going to put on the ballot, because you work with it, and it has to be functional. When it's not functional is when you end up with a situation where people don't run and you have vacancies because it becomes not workable, and that's a problem you had earlier this year, and that's a reflection of some dysfunction with the council. So be sure that you keep that process to where you can, guide what's happening, but still subject to the input and the final approval of the public. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you very much, Attorney Geller. Thankfully, hopefully everybody sees that, the council that we have is a open, welcoming council. There's no drama anymore or anything like that. So, hopefully everybody sees that we welcome everybody with open arms up here. Nothing but smiles, even through debate. Just so you guys know, if we do want to tackle this after the new year, we can tackle this and go right at it, because the deadline, so the general election is November 8th, 2022. The deadline to submit any resolution or ordinance for a charter amendment would be no later than Friday, July 29th. So if we did want to do something for the next election, to be safe, we would probably want to do it, weeks before then. but no later than Friday, July 29th, to submit anything for a charter review, any charter changes to be on the election ballot for next year's election, general election. Okay, Friday, July 29th would be our deadline. All right, so something to think about over the holidays, how you guys want to tackle this and how hard you guys want to go at it. All right, Madam Clerk, yes.
I'm sorry. Did you explain also the part that, given that we do not need to have an election, putting one of these questions will cost us a full election plus more, because they do not, what was explained to me, the ballot is standard, they just input names. So let's say that come up 2022 election and everybody's seat is filled and we don't need to have an election, it can cost up to 10,000 or more.
Yeah, special election. That's what
Just to
that's
have the election for the questions, because once the questions are submitted, you don't go back.
Yeah, which is the reason why I said it's probably better to keep it off and do it all at the same time, so that things are more cost.
Yeah, and the charter review, as I said before, for it being fiscal responsible, we have to budget for that as well.
Absolutely. Thank you, Madam Clerk. Appreciate it.
Mayor,
Yes.
you need a motion?
No, we don't need a motion. We're just gonna table this. Not table it. We're gonna kill it right now, and it might come back up later.
Okay.
We're good.
Later, as in 24?
Later, as in 22.
That's why I'm asking you if you want it, because I'm hearing what the village attorney says. When you make this decision, it should be an informative decision, such that if we decide to go forward before the 24 elections,
Mhm.
we don't have to deal with this, because I think it's a waste of money to just do one item as opposed to a total charter review. This is one item to be looked at during that full review of our charter, as opposed to this one entry going forward in an election.
That's
That was, yes, your point? Okay, so I came in,
Abandon
this,
this as a separate,
okay.
and you'll look at a comprehensive, and this may be an issue in the comprehensive.
Very good, because I may not be the only dyslexic person in the, in the
you're
community.
doing wonderfully, Councilperson Lightfoot.
All
You're
right,
doing
thank
wonderful.
you.
You're doing wonderful. All right, you guys. Any last questions or comments about this? What about anybody from the audience? We're gonna go through and see if we're gonna do a full charter review in the next calendar year. So everybody good? All
I
right.
have one final comment. Just, it would be beneficial to do as you're saying with the full charter review, and that way that any ballot measures that are going on occur in a presidential year. So we'll have the most turnout essentially and get the most accurate kind of opinion of the public on any one of those measures that we put out. I think doing it in the midterm we wouldn't quite get an accurate picture, I don't think.
Okay, so you would say hold off for the charter review until like 23?
No, well, I'm just saying, I'm saying you could, because I feel like some of these ballot measures might be better to wait until 24, although.
Because of turnout. No, I understand what you're saying. The only
Yeah,
thing I would say
although with the charter review, there might be some things we need to get done earlier, so.
yeah, we're
Okay.
kind of to the point of being, where we have
Yeah.
to get it done anyway, so.
If we can, then great.
But like I
Okay.
said, this is something that we'll discuss when we come back from the.
And July is also an on month for committees, so that's a positive too.
Yeah.
If it comes down to the wire. Right.
Yeah, well, it will have to be passed through full council, but yeah, regular council meeting. But yeah, I understand exactly what you mean, Vice Mayor. All right, thank you. Anybody else? We good? Council, we good?
Yes.
Okay. All right, moving right along to resolutions and ordinances. The new I-1 is the short-term rental standards and regulations. All right, so this is how we're going to do this, you guys, because I know there's a lot of individuals who, want to point out certain things and they want to say certain things. So we're going to look at the ordinance. That's how it's going to happen. We're going to look at the ordinance. Does everybody have the ordinance? Hopefully everybody has the ordinance in front of them. And I'm going to have, first I want to have Attorney Geller read the ordinance into the record. Then we'll look at the whereases. I've gotten a lot of phone calls. I've gotten a lot of emails. And I have my own notes also about the whereases. Some of the what was said in the whereases in the bodies. hold on one second. Go ahead and do that now, yeah.
Let me get it read, so.
Yeah.
And read by title. An ordinance of the Village of El Portal, Florida, relating to short-term vacation rentals, providing a definition of a vacation rental, requiring a license to operate a vacation rental, providing standards for issuance and revocation of a vacation rental's or license, requiring insurance for a vacation rental, providing standards of operations, providing for penalties for violations of this section, providing for incorporation of recitals, providing for conflict and repealer, providing for codification, providing for severability, and providing for an effective date. This is first reading, Mayor.
This is first reading. This is very important. So just to explain to everybody out there, 'cause I think kind of like the perception was that, we're going to come together tonight, we're going to, pass something through, and that's it, and nobody gets a chance to say anything. But if anybody knows me, you guys know, first of all, I don't operate like that, right? I'm really transparent, and I believe in everybody being able to have their voice heard. Secondly, and probably even more importantly, is that whatever comes out of tonight, this is the first reading. An ordinance takes 2 readings to be able to be finalized. So worst or best case scenario, this would not be finalized until the 4th Tuesday of January, which would be the January council meeting. All right, the 4th Tuesday of January. Now, what we're going to do so that everybody's able to get all of their thoughts in, what we're going to do is I'm going to start from the first whereas, which the first whereas is pretty, it's pretty technical. But I'm going to start from the first whereas. If anybody from the council has any adjustments that they want to make, when we get to that whereas, that's your time to speak up. Let's say, for example, that I have something that I believe should come out of that paragraph, and Vice Mayor Urban says he believes something should stay in that paragraph. If anybody from the council has a disagreement about anything, if we can't decide or come to a compromise or an agreement, then we'll do for that paragraph, for whatever item we're arguing about, whatever item we're debating about, we'll do a vote, and majority will win, whether that goes in or comes out, whatever the item is. All right, that's how we're going to do it. Okay? Before we move on, before we take any vote on anything coming out or in, before we move on, when we hit each paragraph, if anybody from our residents has anything that they want to add, they might say, you guys, for that whereas, for that paragraph, I believe this should come out because whatever. Before we move on to the next paragraph, I'll ask if any of the residents have any input that they have for that paragraph that we're currently on. No, because I don't want to bounce around. I want once I hit a paragraph and we're done, I don't want to go back to that paragraph. I want to be done with that paragraph. All right, does that make sense? All right, so we're not bouncing around. Everybody's turning the page back and forth, back and forth, back and forth because people want to bounce around. All right, trying to do it as quickly as possible, as orderly as possible. All right, so that's how we're going to do this. The first paragraph is whereas prior to 2011, Florida cities and counties regulated local land use issues and decisions under home rule authority granted them by the Florida Constitution. That's pretty straightforward and technical. Are we good with that whereas? Can I move on, please? Yes? We're good? All right. The next whereas, it says the 2011 Florida Legislature enacted House Bill 883, Florida Chapter 2011-119, Laws of Florida, hereafter House Bill 883, which preempted the local regulation of a specific land use commonly called short-term vacation rentals, transient rentals less than 30 days in duration and commonly located in residential areas. The only thing I have on here was I had circled is preempted a local regulation. This is pretty technical also. Does anybody have any questions or comments about this whereas? It's historical, I understand. Okay. I hear you. The third whereas the 2014 Florida legislature enacted Senate Bill 356, Florida Chapter 2014 through 71, Florida Laws of Florida, hereafter Senate Bill 356, which rescinded the previous preemption on local regulation of short-term vacation rentals, but provided that a local law, ordinance, or regulation adopted after June 1st, 2011 may not prohibit short-term vacation rentals or regulate the duration or frequency of vacation rentals. That's what the bill did. Are we good? Everybody good with that? Okay. All right. The next is, whereas Senate Bill 356 has returned some local control back to communities to mitigate the effects of short-term vacation rentals in an attempt to make them safer, more compatible with existing neighborhoods, and accountable for their proper operation. We good with that? That's what the bill is trying to do, right? Okay. Whereas short-term vacation rentals with no application of mitigating standards when located in residential neighborhoods can create disproportionate impacts related to their size, excessive occupancy, and the lack of proper facilities if left unregulated. Unfortunately, that's what happens sometimes. Okay, this is kind of where my notes start. Whereas short-term vacation rentals locating within established neighborhoods can disturb the quiet enjoyment of the neighborhood, lower property values, and burden the design layout of a typical neighborhood. All right, so on my paper, I kind of have an X right there. Because, I don't know, to me, it just kind of sounds like it's really negative sounding. And it doesn't sound like we're going into this with neutral, in a neutral way. So I have an X next to that one. That's me personally. Anybody from the council have anything they want to say about that?
The only thing I will change is the word can to could. But other than that.
Turn your mic on.
Oh, I'm sorry. The only word I would change will be that from can to could, because it's the possibility. I know and I understand some hosts or short-term rental owners could actually keep up with their property and make it pretty for everybody, to like it, and renters bring renters in. But it could also be an absentee renter, or owner could. Yeah. You just would change the word from can to could. Disturb the environmental quiet, it could, because that's most of the complaints we have. It could bring the property values down because, once you have a short-term rental paradise here, then it actually deter like private owners, like residential, owners with kids and stuff to live in a city and a small municipality that has more than 100 short-term rentals.
I hear you.
And I'm talking about, again, investors with renting, the whole dwelling. So, to me, it's just that.
The only thing I hear you, Councilperson Perella, I don't disagree with you necessarily. The only thing that I would say, though, is that if you look at the next paragraph, it kind of says the same thing, but it's kind of a little bit more detailed to what the actual problems could possibly be. The next paragraph says, whereas the unregulated presence of short-term vacation rentals within single-family dwelling units in established residential neighborhoods could create negative compatibility impacts, which include, but are not limited to, excessive noise, which is a problem, on-street parking, accumulation of trash, and diminished public safety. I think that one right there we could keep,
Right.
because that kind of like more details what we're aiming at, where the other one kind of just gives the feeling of we don't like it. So I think we should get rid of the one that I have the X next to, and we should just keep the one behind it.
Well, similar, yes.
Yeah?
Pretty much.
But, Mr. Mayor,
Yes, Councilperson Lightfoot Ward.
we've already experienced the does create. It's not a can or could anymore, it is a does create.
Well, we can keep the can there for that whereas. I just think that they both kind of say the same thing, but I think the second, or that one on the bottom of the page, that one right there, I think is better because it more details exactly what we're trying to do.
So I'm not in agreement, because it does. We already having that. That's why it's here in wording. We already have it. It does create. Ask me how I know. Okay, y'all got it.
I understand what you're saying, Councilman Lightfoot Ward. I'm going to open it up to the residents also, but I want to first finish up here. So, Councilperson Ward, you feel like we should keep both the paragraphs?
Hold on, she's talking to, I'll speak for a minute.
Go ahead.
You got it back.
Do you feel like we should keep both the paragraphs?
What I'm saying is change the word from can to does in that paragraph.
Okay, but the paragraph that the second to last paragraph where I wanted to X that one out.
No, I'm
Where it
through.
says-
I'm through with the one you just said about.
Okay.
Put the could in there. I'm good with that.
Okay.
Okay, I'm talking about what you just read, that long one.
Yes.
It says can. and
You
I'm
want that to
saying
say
it already
does.
has. It should say does. Not only would it say that in ours, but it says it in the other municipalities does. It does say that. It does create, because they've already experienced it too.
Okay, the only reason why I would say, we could say does because right here, the whereas says the unregulated presence does. Because after whatever passes, then it'll be regulated and therefore it will not any longer.
Okay, that's my point. It says what it says, unregulated does. It really does. So, yeah, it would already be there. We wouldn't argue about it. It wouldn't come up in 2020, 2031, none of that. It would already be settled. That we recognized it then and we corrected it by passing an ordinance, and that was long before we even passed the ordinance.
Okay.
Mayor,
And then we move on.
Yes, Attorney Geller.
from a drafting standpoint, the intention of saying can was to say that it is possible as opposed to being conclusive that it always occurs. That's why the word can was used. I guess it could be could, which also is a possibility. As to the point that the Councilperson Lightfoot Ward is raising, there could be circumstances where it does create it, but there might be circumstances where it doesn't. If you want another alternative to all of those words, does, can, or could, you could just use the word may create, and that way you're not stating definitively that it will happen every single time, but it is certainly a possibility, and if you do it as the fact that it's a possibility, I think you can get yourself to where you move past these whereas clauses and get to the specifics of what the ordinance will provide. So just as, you can use any word you want. You could use does, you could use could, you could leave it can, but you may like the word may because it raises that this is something that is possible will occur, but maybe not in every circumstance. And by may or can, you're acknowledging that there are operators who operate properly, but as Councilperson Lightfoot Ward says, when you talk about unregulated, you will have people who still do the right thing, and then you will have some people who do not do the right thing. And that was the intention here, is to be able to distinguish between those operators who operate responsibly and those who do not, and that's why you need regulation.
Thank you very much, Attorney Geller. Listen, you guys, to me, it's kind of semantics. Can, could, may. Something can happen, something could happen, something may happen. So I'm not gonna nitpick about that. Whatever you guys want, can, could, or may. Whatever you guys want to put there, I'm okay with that. Can, could, or may. Councilperson Lightfoot Ward, were you good?
Through, are we gonna do may, or are we gonna let it stand? That's all I'm asking. You said. put your
Councilperson
comment.
Lightfoot Ward, which one would you prefer? Can, could, or may?
May.
May. We'll put it as may. No problem. We can change that to may. Councilperson Lightfoot Ward, you good?
I'm good.
Okay. Vice Mayor Urban, I know you want to say
All
something.
right, so then is it my understanding that the council is agreement with you that the.
Six.
That the second from the bottom, let's see, one,
It's
two,
paragraph
three,
six.
4, 5,
The last
6.
from the bottom.
Well, I'm saying that the sixth one from the top, second one from the bottom, right? Is the council in agreement that is able to be eliminated?
You may want to do may in all three of those, whether you eliminate, if you
Okay.
don't eliminate.
Right.
3 paragraphs at the bottom, and if you just put the word may.
I got you.
which is what I think
And then-
you said, instead of can, all 3 of those can be left.
And then-
Because it's just what may happen, and you're not
That's right.
putting a finger on every operator, because they're responsible operators.
Then the only other change I would suggest is that in that sixth, whereas near the end, it says, lower property values and burden the design layout of a typical neighborhood. I had that maybe that and burden should be changed to and or.
Vice Mayor Urban,
But
if you give me, let me do something
Yeah,
real quick, Vice Mayor
yeah.
Urban.
But I do think it's
Um,
redundant.
yeah.
The paragraph is very redundant. But I
Yeah.
know that legalese likes both double negatives and redundancy, so.
Absolutely. Vice Mayor Urban, so let's do this. I feel like I want to get rid of paragraph 6. I'll invite the residents up. I know some people have something about paragraph 7. I want to get rid of paragraph 6. I want to put that to bed. Does anybody on the council want to keep paragraph 6?
I'm indifferent.
Which one is,
4,
I feel like we should get rid of paragraph 6. Does anybody on the council want to keep paragraph 6?
what's paragraph?
Paragraph 6 is the one that I said, the second from the bottom. Whereas short-term vacation rentals locating within established neighborhoods can disturb the quiet enjoyment of the neighborhood, lower property values, and burden the design layout of a typical neighborhood. I think that doesn't have to be there. Second from the bottom, paragraph 6. Is anybody from the council, do they disagree with me with getting rid of paragraph 6?
I do disagree, because it does happen.
Okay. I'm going to ask, we'll take it to a vote. I'm going to ask for a motion, a second, and we'll have a quick vote on paragraph 6. Do I have a motion to get rid of paragraph 6?
I'll move to eliminate paragraph 6.
We have a motion. Do I have a second?
Okay.
No? Okay, so unfortunately, there's no second. Paragraph 6 remains, you guys.
But will paragraph 6 remain with the can change to may, just as the other paragraph?
Yeah, we can now
Okay.
discuss that because it's going to
Okay.
stay.
Change it in all 3.
I got
Right.
you.
And Attorney Geller, I'd be interested in your opinion. I feel like by putting and or burden the design layout, you've now kind of separated all of those issues in paragraph 6 and not made a blanket statement about all of those about, I don't know. I feel like and or reinforces the may premise.
It is a useful addition to say and or, and it addresses to some degree what the mayor said about why he didn't like it. By changing the language to and or, you're also addressing the mayor's concern to, take the finger off some of the operators. So it's a good addition, Vice Mayor, and it does also get you at least halfway to what the mayor wanted to do.
Where are we putting the and or, Vice Mayor?
Where, in paragraph 6, near the end, it says, lower property values, comma, and burden the design.
And
That and, I believe, should be changed to and or.
Okay,
very good.
And that does half of what you wanted to do.
Yeah.
perfect. Compromise is always good. Thank you very much, Vice Mayor. All right, so we were on paragraph 7, you guys. Paragraph 6 is staying. Some people might want to talk about paragraph 6, but I'm going to open it right up to the residents now. Come up. So we're done with the first page. Any questions about the first page? You guys can come up, say your name and address for the record. You have to come up to the microphone over here, say your name and address for the record, and let your voice be heard.
And you have 3 minutes.
Come on.
And then we'll move on to the next page after.
Both come and be ready to go.
Good evening.
Good evening.
My name is Rodolfo Alonso, 199 Northwest 90th Street. In reference to whereas paragraph 6 and 7, I think, based on my interpretation of it, is it may or may not. having short-term rental, Airbnb, VRBO, it may or may not lower the value of the properties in the community. So I disagree when somebody says like it does, because it doesn't necessarily do that. There are properties here at El Portal that the owners take very good care of them. Some of them are short-term rentals, some of them are not. Some of the residents that we have they're involved in the community, they do great things for the community, and then they're an asset. Not all of the residents are in that position. It's the same thing with short-term rentals. Some of them are an asset because they actually increase property value. Anybody that have access to look up property values in Miami-Dade County will know actually El Portal is one of the communities that have increased property values the most in the past few years. That's awesome. And during all those years, there has been short-term rentals at El Portal. So once again, I think it may or may not, does not always do.
Mayor, if I might, and sir, you're 100% right, and that's why the council just changed it to say may, because it may, but it may not. So you're completely right, and I don't know, maybe you talked to them in advance or they read your mind, but that's exactly the change that was just made. You're completely accurate in what you say.
So
Thank you very much,
Just-
Attorney Gill.
for the residents' benefit, you're saying that by just using may, that satisfies the concept of may or may not. Okay, just want to clarify for any residents who are thinking, but no, but they're different. Okay.
Absolutely.
'Cause
Thank you very much, Vice
Because
Mayor.
legalese is nice and confusing.
Yes. Go ahead.
Good evening, Pascal DePool, 177 Northwest 90th Street. Can I back up for just one quick second? I think one of the reasons we like to live in El Portal is because it's always been a great place to be, and you guys aren't heavy-handed on a lot of the regulations that we're getting. This copy of Miami Shores is heavy-handed. I'd love to see something that's a little bit more common sense, and that, like the lawyer's saying, excuse me, Mr. Geller, is saying that it doesn't impact operators that do well and that take care with undue extra regulations. I'm with the mayor. I think this paragraph should be kicked out. First of all, it's the only whereas that doesn't talk about unregulated Airbnbs, or short-term rentals, but short-term rentals in general. And I disagree that it lowers or may lower or could or can, however you want to put it. In 2017, the Wall Street Journal wrote an article based on a working paper proving that short-term rentals in a community actually increase property value. And then in 2020, the National Bureau of Economic Research did the same thing. I'm happy to give you guys a copy of that, where it actually proves in a study that short-term rentals increase property value, not just of the short-term rental, but of the community around it. So I disagree that this should be in here. I don't think it's correct, and I don't think it's beneficial. Like the mayor says, it's a very negative sounding paragraph that is untrue, at least on the property value side, and that it's the only one that talks about, and does not mention unregulated, but just broadly strokes every short-term rental. So I would love to see you guys vote again and take that out.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Ian McKenzie, 8950 Northeast 4th Avenue. I'm a resident here since 2003, so I've been here for 19 years roughly. And I bought in El Portal because I liked the small community. It was quiet, it was friendly, and it was zoned residential. As far as I know, it's not zoned industrial or zoned, I think there have some sections of it that are particularly zoned for business or whatever, but not in a residential area. I don't begrudge anybody's desire to rent out a room or something like that, but I urge the board to really consider the fact that the impact on the neighborhood, children, crime. We've had noise problems. I know that over the course of the years, both neighbors that are on both sides of me, I live on a corner, have rented out their properties for not short-term, it's for a year or 2 years, and the neighbors have caused problems, and it goes without failing. So I'd like to make you guys sensitive of that, because, this is why a good residential area in proximity to the airport, all the location, that's what adds to the value of this place now. Elevation is another factor with sea level rise and so forth that you have to be very cognizant about, and that's going to make our values of our properties worth more than they are. As related to lower areas in Miami Beach, there's going to be flooding more. Also, with short-term property rentals, you'll see they've had problems in Belmead where they had people doing that, renting out Airbnbs. On Miami Beach, there's been problems. Police have been called. Consider that is that something you really want? So there is the possibility that that could happen. I'm not saying it's going to. A lot depends on the person who is renting the property. If they have a management company, the management company is not the same as someone out who I'm there on present in the building too. And that's really important. I know my aunt in Scotland had a bed and breakfast, and Scottish laws required her to be present 24/7 while someone was staying in her facility. They needed to install fire systems, just as a hotel would, because you are competing with the hotels, so that prevents homes from burning down or people getting injured in these rental properties. So these are some things that you really need to consider. Also, street traffic, people coming in, is this what we really want? I don't know. I mean, I'm very cautious about this, and I think the board needs to really look at this very carefully for the citizens who are here. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Hey, JR 269 Northeast 90th Street in El Portal. I find myself agreeing with both parties. That's the funny part. Because I think it all lays in one thing, and that's enforcement. And if enforcement is lacking or not strict enough on issues that arise, then we have an issue. Until then, especially in a market where people can't find any place to possibly live at some decent rate, I find short-term rental, and short-term rental is relative. Would I prefer a one-year rental? Would I prefer 100% ownership that takes charge of the situation, like Mr. Kapoor does? I know that is a fact. Absolutely. Am I disagreeing with having a management company take care of properties? 100% yes, because that makes it too external and not involved. So as long as the residents are involved with the properties that they own and rent part of it, especially in El Portal, we have a lot of cottages that are living spaces. And if in times, last 2 years pandemic, where people may need extra income, I think it's relevant. I think it's humane as well to do that. But yes, to me, enforcement comes to the police department, comes to the village. I tell you, I'm a little bit disappointed with what's going on in the village in regards to rotating of staff, not having proper staffing, no code enforcement. I could go on and on and on, but that's not what we're here for tonight. I can write that in the email. But generally speaking, I agree with short-term rentals if it is by the owner, number one, and if it is properly regulated and enforced. And that's all there is to it.
Thank you very much. As far as the ownership and or outside company and things like that, we're going to kind of get into some of those things. They show up on like the bottom of page 2 and page 3. They start to go on those things. So we're going to get to those things pretty soon.
Mr. Mayor, if I may.
Yes, go ahead, Councilperson.
Which it brings me to the point that the gentleman just pointed out, and I didn't see it here, about the person managing or taking care of their property rental to live within certain amount of mileage.
Yeah, we're going to get, absolutely.
From the property rental, if it's an absentee owner, if it's not a, yes. So it needs to be put in there.
Yeah, we're going to go through, that stuff.
We're on page 2 now?
Yeah, we're going to go to page, you guys good? You want to come up and say something, Pascal? He's like, the walk. I understand. But we have to do it, my brother. We have to do it.
It's my workout tonight, I guess.
It's all good.
Name and address for the record, please.
Still Pascal, still 177 Northwest 90th. You're going to hear it a bunch of times tonight.
Yeah, all right, good.
Just technicality, the things that we've suggested now that you guys are not addressing, that's gonna get changed, and then we get another ordinance for the second reading, or how does that work?
So I was just about to ask the council about the things you guys said. And
Well,
we're
no,
gonna,
you guys were going to page 2, so.
yeah, we're going to page 2, but I was going to ask the council about the things you guys said, though. You're good. You want to stay there while I do it?
Can I answer the gentleman's question?
Yeah.
If it passes on first reading, it comes back for a second reading. It can be further changed. It's the same ordinance, but it can be further changed on second reading, provided the changes are not too substantial. If the changes are wholesale, then it has to be a new first reading, and you can, just have a new first reading and then have a second reading after that. But normally it goes to second reading, but the changes that can be made on second reading can't be too great. If it really changes what you're doing substantially, then you just repeat first reading. I hope that answers your question.
But for instance, adding unregulated to this paragraph.
So, yeah,
Is
so.
that something that, if you guys don't decide that tonight,
That could be certainly added on second reading. That is not such a dramatic change that it would undermine the whole spirit of the ordinance. So, yes,
So if
that
it-
could still be done.
so I'm sorry, just technicality again, if you guys don't include that, we could come back for the second read and say, hey, this should really read this way.
That is correct.
Thank you.
All right, we're gonna move on to page 2. But, so like I was saying, and Councilman Perrella was saying, as far as, some of the things that were addressed, they're coming up, is my point. So my point, Pascal, was that they're coming up. So a lot of the things that, people were brought up. The only thing that I was gonna say, though, now, I'm the one that wanted it, and wanted to go forward. So I can't bring it back up. But does anybody want to bring up the slashing of paragraph 6? Do I hear
We want to
anything?
move on, Mayor, we don't want to be.
Do I hear anything about bringing up the slashing of paragraph 6? You got to try. You got to try. All right, page 2, you guys, says, whereas the establishment of minimum business practices such as the provision of both lease-specific and property-specific information to lessees and the designation of a local short-term vacation rental responsible party helps to ensure that the private property rights of the short-term vacation rental owner are balanced with the needs of the village to protect visitors and tourists and to preserve the general welfare through its limited regulatory power. Anybody from the council?
Mayor, I think this is a very positive statement, very much thought about in terms of humanitarian wise. I think it's I just felt that this was just reading it tells you that we're not trying to break somebody's back. What we're trying to do is simply make sure that our neighbor in my neighborhood does not change much. This is a very positive statement.
Thank you very much, Council President for Ward. Anybody else from the council? You guys good? Anybody from the residents? You guys good? Okay. Now therefore be it ordained by the Village of El Portal, El Portal, Florida Council that Section 1 of the foregoing, all right, that's general. Section 2, Article 6, hereby create to add a definition, and Section 52 as follows, that's general. Vacation rental means non-owner occupied,
Definition.
that's general. Transit occupancy, Section 6, that's general there. All right, 571. No owner of a dwelling unit shall rent or lease the dwelling unit as a vacation rental without first having obtained vacation rental license. A separate license is required for each dwelling unit. I don't know if I feel good about that. A separate license is required for each dwelling unit used as a vacation rental. The license shall be valid for 1 year only and may be renewed as set forth in this section, and shall be valid only for the person to whom it was issued and not to be subject to sale, assignment, or transfer, voluntary or involuntary, nor shall the license be valid for any premises other than that for which it was originally issued. The license shall be displayed in a conspicuous place in the vacation rental. The fee to apply for a license issued under this subsection shall be $750, which must be tendered at the time of application and shall not be refunded if an application is denied. The annual fee for renewing an existing license shall be $500. All right, let me just say me first, you guys, if I may. Is that okay for council? Okay, we're good? All right. $750 for each dwelling.
I don't see any of that, Mayor. You're reading a lot of stuff, but I don't see any of it.
The amount.
You guys don't have that in there?
Nope.
Ours says determined via resolution from the council.
No, you guys don't have that in yours?
Nope.
Hold on. What's this?
Mayor, I think that's an earlier version. One of the suggestions that Councilperson Morton made was instead of fixing the amount in the ordinance, which is a little difficult to change,
That's right.
to just have it be done by separate resolution. The idea, the expected amount is $750, and the renewal is expected at $500, but you'll have to adopt a resolution to do that. And this way, if at some point in the future, you say, gee, we really need to get 1,000, we're losing money every time we do it, you have the ability to do it. Or if you said, you know, we could only get by with 600, changing it by resolution instead of putting the amount in the ordinance gives you much greater flexibility.
Yeah.
Okay. So this one ends with the annual fee for renewing an existing license shall be determined by via resolution from the council.
Exactly.
Okay. Okay. Oh, this is good. All right. I was like, man, we can't charge our residents. I was like, each additional dwelling. All right. Does anybody have a problem with this paragraph, the 571?
Negative.
Yes.
I said negative. No, I do not.
Negative. Okay. Very good. You guys good? 571? Pascal, if you have something to say, come up, say your name, address, whatever.
Pascal DePool, 177 Northwest 90th Street. I'm learning. Section 2, I'm sorry, before 571. You guys are defining short-term rentals as anything 3 months or less in duration. Although your whereas talks about the 30 days in the second and third. Why is there a difference on that? Why would this apply to rentals that are 90 days versus 30 days? Because your second whereas says that transient rentals less than 30 days in duration, which is the same that Miami-Dade County has for their cutoff between short-term transient rentals and a regular long-term rental.
Is that an oversight, attorney?
If I might, Mayor. The whereas clauses were adapted from something that was used in one of the other villages, as you pointed out. But the attempt here in the definition is to cover some additional kinds of rentals, to have this applicable not only to less than 30 days, the idea being that some people rent like for the season, and by using the specific definition of less than 3 months, you can cover people who rent for the season. I mean, obviously the biggest problem are the people who rent by the night, but if you're gonna go to all the trouble to adopt an ordinance that tries to regulate, you wanna try to catch some more. So the intent was to catch some of the seasonal rentals as well as just the monthly rentals. That's the reason it's drawn this way.
But the second whereas is historical and not
Correct.
from the village. So but
Yes,
if the
sir.
state defines it as 30 days, I'm not sure why we are now changing it. Because actually, Florida state defines a short-term rental as 6 months or less in there. So we're in
There are
between.
a lot of permutations, and, you know, if this is proposed for the council, so it's a fair item for you to be raising as to what the council wants to do.
I'd love to
But
s-
something had to be put in black and white to be proposed
Perfect.
so that there can be conversation about it.
I'd love to see it proposed at 30 days. Like the state says, like your whereas says, like the historical law that's proposed, or that's already in law since 2011, that we'd have the same thing there.
So, Madam Mayor, Mr. Mayor,
Yeah, so section 2 on the vacation rental, instead of 3 months, he's proposing 30 days, like the second whereas.
yes, that's his point. He wants it to align with
Yeah. The-
what's already there.
Does anybody on the council have a disagreement with that?
No, I like it.
You like it?
30 days is
Right,
fine.
because the way it is now, the 3 months, would that also envelop month-to-month operators?
It would, by saying that it applies to any rental of 3 months or less. You would catch all the monthlies, you would catch all the weeklies or overnight, but you would also include, seasonal rentals when somebody's coming in for the season. It doesn't have to be that way, but it was designed by looking at some of the other ordinances that other municipalities have done to give you a little bit more regulatory control by being able to include 60 or 90-day rentals along with the 30. But, as I said to the resident, that's entirely up to you. And, you could, again, that's the kind of thing, in my opinion, you could change on second reading as well. You might not be able to go the other way. If you're proposing to regulate 90-day rentals and you decide on second reading you only want to cover 30-day rentals, you've done something that has less applicability to people than what you proposed on first reading. But if on first reading you say we're only going to do 30 days, and then on second reading you say, let's include up to 90, that's the kind of change that arguably would require a new first reading,
yeah.
because you're expanding the regulation that you're doing, not narrowing it.
Right, like I've got a friend in Key West who, to get around that, would sign, 30-day contracts to, they had to be 30 days or longer, right? So you sign a 30-day contract with a person knowing that they're only going to be there for 2 weeks, they still pay the premium for the entire booking. Didn't even have to double book during the same time period, which kept her out of trouble as well. So this would address some of those practices, I suppose.
But it's open for you're free to decide how you want it to be. It certainly would be proper if you wanted to change it to only 30-day rentals. But let me just say that if you were going to make that change, be sure that's the direction you want to go if you're going to change it on first reading, because you can't bounce from 30
And extend it.
back to 90 without doing a new first reading, which, it's no tragedy to have a new first reading either, if that's where you decide you want to go.
So thank you very much, Attorney Gaddis. So basically, right now, you guys, it says 3 months in duration. The 3 months in duration that it says here is different from the whereas, the second whereas of 30 days. But if we're not sure about this right now, we can keep this at 3 months in duration, and then when we get to the second reading, we can lower it down to 30 days if we decide to do that. Then if we're not sure right now, and we won't have to go back to a first reading. So are we sure that we want to lower it down to the 30 days right now? If we're not sure, we can keep it at 3 months right now, and then we can lower it down in January before we complete the second reading.
I think
Keep
we
it like it
may
is for now.
want to.
Keep it like it is.
Leave it like it is, and we'll go back. I'll put a big question mark on my notes, and so that'll be something that we'll come back and address and make sure that we really want it. All right, I'll circle it in a question mark. All right, you guys, we're good with 5.71. We're on to 5.72. We're good with 5.71, right? We're good? All right. 5.72, license application denial or revocation for cause. All right, so issuance of a license or renewal of a license shall be denied, and any license issued hereunder may revoke for cause for any of the following reasons. Okay, so we're talking about revocation.
Rather than read all of those, Mayor, and everybody that has a copy has seen it, let's just address the ones that someone might have a problem with.
I hear you, but I think some people might have just got it tonight, though. So that's,
You've got copies, and that's why I said you may want to just see what in here any resident has a comment on or a problem with.
Right.
I understand.
You've got a 6-page ordinance here,
We don't want to be here all night.
barely on page 2.
I understand what you guys are saying, but I don't want any resident that has not had time to look through it feel like we rushed through it.
You're on page 2 of the 6-page ordinance.
All right, let's do it.
Be here till midnight.
Mr. Mayor, we can do a lot of things.
We can do
But
a
to
lot of
use
things.
this as a time to wait until 1 o'clock in the morning to finish this ordinance, no, sir.
It
That is
wouldn't be
unfair.
till
All
1
right,
o'clock in the
I
morning
got
to
the
finish
floor,
this
come on,
ordinance.
give it to me, I got the floor. So, because we have a showing of residents that have concern, we could easily stop this right now and have them go back and look at it very carefully as we had, because I spent 3 hours. Yes, everybody, I'm sympathetic to the residents. I spent 3 hours looking at this ordinance this weekend. It is not to be toyed with. It is to be looked at and considered carefully, and not just rammed down your throat or hurry up and let's get it done tonight. We can stop this very quickly. We don't have to pass this tonight. We don't have to do anything on this tonight. If there's a residents out there, or even residents that want copies of it, when we meet again, then we'll already provide it to them. But this is not something we all want to run into. This is something we all want to agree on. So Mayor, your protocol is always seeking the benefit of the residents as the whole council is. And I move that we don't move any further on this and we table it.
We can do that. Let me just say this. Let me say this, though. If we do that, you understand that we're coming back to the next meeting basically in the same position we're in right now. So if everybody goes home right now and goes through it themselves, they're coming back to the next meeting with what? Notes. And they're going to say, okay, let's look at 5.72. Let's look at 5.74. We're going to be doing the same exact thing we're doing right now.
Then let's have a workshop. Let's have a workshop.
But we're all
before
here. Why don't we
do it.
just do it right now?
No, let's have a workshop. We are not gonna run this, thank you, sir.
Yeah.
We are not gonna run this down everybody's throat. This is too serious. This is too serious not to have a workshop in this village so that everybody have conversation and everybody gets to say something, because this is gonna impact everybody. It's already impacted me on my neighborhood. It's already impacted me. Very good. Thank you for your vote back, Elder. I appreciate that.
Mayor,
Yes, Attorney Gallo.
respectfully, to both your point and to Councilperson Lightfoot Ward's point, whatever the council wants to do, whether you want to finish going through this for first reading, table it, have a workshop on it, whatever the council's pleasure is, I would urge one thing. And the one thing, because, I mean, however you want to do it, that's up to y'all, but I would say you've got a sample of residents here, no matter what you do, even if it's a table, you should make sure that every person that's taking the time to come up, instead of having to wait or not getting heard, or wait till you get to something 5 pages, people may want to go home and not be heard. You ought to at least, before you make any decision, invite every person up that's taking the time to come to say anything they got about any part of it that they want to say about this whole ordinance, including, I don't like it, and that ain't a paragraph, this or that, I don't like. Just whatever you do, I would urge you, Councilperson Life Award before you table.
That's right.
Just make sure everybody that came can say whatever they want to.
I agree.
Listen, this is the thing. I'll bring up whoever wants to say whatever, but like I said, we're going to be bouncing around. Now, we can do a workshop. I'm not against a workshop. I think a workshop is a good idea. But if we do a workshop, we're going to be bringing everybody back here to do the same exact thing we're doing right now.
Yeah, I
Or
have
they
a
won't be
comment.
the middle of the night.
I have a comment.
You know what I mean? We're going to do the
I have a
same
comment.
exact thing we're doing right now. So I mean, I understand. I mean, we're here right now. It's 8:39. But let me say this also. All the pausing
Yes.
is stopping us.
So,
All the pausing is stopping us. I don't think I was reading too slow. I'd be breezing through. I would have been right now at the bottom of page 3.
I have one comment.
So if we can limit the council comments to anybody who has a problem, we don't need anybody to say if they agree with it. We don't need anybody to say, yes, this is good. We don't need anybody to say, anything positive. If you disagree with it, what do you want to change? But everybody can come up. We can have a workshop. Everybody can come back here again. Take their time to come back here again, and we can do a 2-hour workshop later on. If that's what you guys
Mayor, you may find if you hear your residents, you may find you don't need the workshop. If the residents, see what they say. Because the residents may say, no, we don't need more time. We don't need another. Maybe they do. Maybe the council person is right, but if you hear your residents, you'll know what they want.
I understand.
Mr. Mayor,
Go
can I?
ahead.
Okay, so look, we're at the end of page 2. We could have been done reading through all 12 of those by now. And it's not 6 pages, it's really only 5, because the 6th page is not, is in the historical realm as well. And so I feel that the mayor actually has a decent plan of getting through this in a timely manner. I do agree that the interruptions are kind of what's holding things up here. And the way I see it is we're already halfway through page 3 if we had managed to read these 12 points quickly.
You all, listen to what I'm saying right now. Everybody's here. If we just stop talking and get through this, I will ask you guys, we will table the remainder of the agenda till January. We can table the text notification thing. We can table that stuff till January. And we can just do this, and then we can be done for the night.
It would be more efficient if you finish this on first reading, Mayor. It would be more efficient. But again, you'll know that when you hear from your residents.
You know?
For signs, yeah, signs is a big deal.
Yeah. Yeah, signs is a big deal also. Yeah. Sir, go ahead.
Ian McKenzie, 8950 Northeast 4th Avenue. I just want to say that this is the first time that I've seen this document here, this ordinance, and I didn't find out about this meeting until like last Thursday or something like that. So I don't think a lot of people are aware about this issue, and this ordinance is facing the residents. And while I don't think it, right now, if we don't have any laws on the books or anything that governs the Airbnbs or the short-term rentals, then it's just going to continue on the way it is, so that it doesn't hurt anybody, or restrict anybody, because the rules are just not on the book. But I think it deserves a serious and very detailed look for both ways. I mean, I thought of a good argument for somebody who, has multiple Airbnbs, I heard, and just tonight, and the fact that if they have to pay multiple licenses, well, maybe that could work out for them in the better, because if one license gets pulled because some bad thing happens, they still don't lose the other licenses. So, but if you have one license with multiple, you lose everything. So, there's a lot of issues at hand, which, you have to really look at very carefully and see. And I think rushing through is a bad idea. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Hey,
Oh, sorry. Go ahead. Sorry
Sorry,
about that.
Omar.
I didn't see you sneak over there. Go ahead.
I
Just say your
wanted
name
to
and address for the record.
discuss this, but
Calixto.
before that, I want to
Say your name. Say your name. Address.
Excuse me?
Say your name.
Oh,
address for the
that's
record,
right.
please.
Calixto Navarro, 335 Northeast 87th Street. And thank you for letting me speak. Thank you to the council members. to preempt my thing, I do have an issue, and reviewing it, there's maybe 3 points that I disagree with. And I'm one of the first people that started Airbnb here back in 2010. I've been living here since 2008, and I bought the house in not a foreclosure, in a short sale for $185,000. I can put my house for sale right now for close to $975,000, okay? I'm a realtor, and I work all this area in here. I know what the home values are. So anybody who tells me that the home values come down, and I didn't want to bring it up here, come down because you do Airbnb, it's a myth. And I think we have to look at the statistical and realistic and not emotional. That's number one. As a realtor and as someone who really believes in home sharing, during these difficult periods, okay, 99% of the people who stayed in my homes and that have stayed in many of our homes in Airbnb, guess what? These are people who had been suffering during the pandemic, but were allowed to work remotely. These were people who needed peace and quiet in a home, okay? And most of the people, 99% in the last 2 years, sat at my dinner table or in my Florida room working from morning to afternoon. They would go out, and guess where they would go? They would walk to our community. They would go to Publix. They would go to Pinch. They would go to the Citadel. They would use everything that's in our neighborhood, and this is repeated since 2010 when Airbnb started. Think of what I have provided to this community in all these years that I have been doing Airbnb, which is going to be now 12 years. And can you imagine, this is a 6-page. I only have 3 issues with this ordinance, okay? There's things that I would bring up. Why? Because I care. I care about my community. I care about El Portal. I actually ran against Omar. Remember, Omar? I was running against you, and you won, thank God. But thank God. But what I want to say is that we all care, and I have to, I have seen the transformation of El Portal, and people say, "Oh, we're gentrifying. We're making." We're making these homes very expensive. We're pushing out people. No, ladies and gentlemen. There are people, some of my neighbors, who bought these houses, and you know that these were people who cleaned bathrooms, Haitians and other African American families who cleaned bathrooms in hotels, who had second-rate jobs, okay? That sold their houses in retirement, okay, right when they retired. And they walked, you know what, with a pocket full of money, buying themselves, like my dear neighbor, who I adored and I missed her dearly, who worked very, very hard in a hospital, cleaning for years and years and years. And that lady, thank God, took with her a pocket full of money, bought herself a little apartment in North Miami cash, and had money to leave to her children. So don't think of it as you're gentrifying, you're pushing people out. No, you are bringing opportunity to other people's, and I could repeat that to all the houses that have been made very nice around my neighborhood that they got top dollars for, okay? And these people now are living very comfortably after working so hard in second-rate jobs that other people didn't want to do. And this was an opportunity for them. So, ladies and gentlemen, this is not so terrible, okay? And there are other peoples who are still, and you know who they are, that live in our community, that I do not say, or I would ever call code compliance or say anything, because I know that they have financial hardships. But I know that they're hoarders. It's cats and raccoons live all over the place that come to my house. I deal with the children for all the years that I've been living here, throwing cans, trash all over my front yard because they walk right in front of my front yard. And I have never, ever complained because we live in a community. We live in a village, and these are things that happen, and not everything can be perfect. But I do try and strive to respect everybody in this community, and it doesn't matter what socioeconomic level it is. And I have worked very hard to have my Airbnb and to take care of this community and care for this, to make sure that there is a proper legislation. But when there's things that I think that could be modified to be made better, to be made more flexible, I think that we should listen and perhaps maybe sit down and say, but there's not a whole lot I would change, to be honest with you. Just a few things that, and I've discussed with Pascal. And, yeah, do we need regulations? Yeah, because I do want those party houses shut down. I do want them shut down because they bother me too. Okay? And they hurt my business and they hurt the community. And I agree with the council person and with everybody here. But I needed to make that, I wanted to frame this so you could understand, okay? And, what it's all about. But anyway, the only point on the page 2 is I don't think that we should, that if you don't own the property, I think that there, in section 1 that they cannot do vacation rental, somebody that's renting. I think there's many things as realtors that that this village could require an affidavit from the homeowner saying, should this renter that is going to sublease have any violations, automatically the lease agreement with this person becomes null and void, and you have to get a new tenant in there. And I think that that's a solution. What do you think, Council? Geller? Do you agree? That's something that could be done.
Yes, sir. It is,
Yeah,
it's
I
the
mean, we could modify it
discretion.
instead of just saying no,
It is absolutely the discretion of the council to do that. You make valid points, but, there are points such as the previous gentleman just made. That's why you have a council.
Exactly.
To go through that and try to, harmonize those
and
points.
find a happy median. Okay, and that's basically the only thing I have from this whole page. So that's it. That's what I wanted to say. Thank you.
All right, thanks. So you have no more sections that you want to focus on that you have?
No,
Okay.
I mean, I do in the next pages. I mean, I have one which the LLC. You got to remember that a lot of us who do Airbnb, we do have it going to LLCs and businesses because we need to have some sort of retirement and we have to declare it. So we put it through a corporation, so we get a payroll, so we pay into Social Security and we do all that. So I think that this needs to be modified. I know why they're doing it, and I understand it's because of those big companies and conglomerates, but I think that we can work on that, That's number 7 on the next page. And then there's other issues that I have question marks, but it's not like,
It's all good. It's all good. No,
that can be modified, but it's nothing serious,
I appreciate you. Yeah. I mean, but this is what, and thank you very much, Calixto. I appreciate you. But this is what I was trying to avoid. Because if you have individuals come up and they say, they give us the list of the problems that they have, like we'll just be flipping through the papers and nobody's on the same page. If we go through it, then we're all of our mind frame is on the same page, on the same thing at the same exact time. So it's easier to get through it like that because we're all thinking within the same realm at the same time. But I'm one person. I'm part of a council. So I'll go ahead, Pascal. I'll let you speak. And I'll ask the council what they want to do. If the council wants to table it and we vote and we can table it, if that's what the council wants to do. Like I said, it's not a dictatorship. I'm just one person. So this is the whole council. So I'll ask the council. But go ahead, Pascal, name and address for the
Pascal
record.
DePool, 177 Northwest 90th Street, again. I like the idea of Councilperson Lightfoot, because here's my perception of this whole process. We did not know about this. Last time when we were here, like the gentleman just said, he just heard about this a little bit ago. When we were here for the committee meeting, this wasn't on the agenda. The email that went out for this meeting has the wrong date on it. It's for next Thursday, not tonight. So even if somebody wants to come, they had to have the wrong information. I love the idea about a workshop, because what we've basically done is copy Miami Shores and say, let's put this through. That's how it looks to me and to other people in the community that I've spoken with. I love the idea of saying, let's sit down, figure out what the problems are that we want to avoid, like party houses, like whatever, and figure out how to solve those, versus just copying an ordinance from somebody else that has a lot of things in it that some of us disagree with.
Well, let me
So
say, by
much-
the way,
much,
sir,
much
that
rather
we
have
did
that.
incorporate some things from North Bay Village
I know,
and from
it's
Miami Springs.
Miami Shores and
as
add-
well as
yes.
Miami Shores.
But I'd love to see a workshop where the community actually gets together and drafts their own ordinance or their own way of regulating this, versus just taking our neighbors, adding a couple things to it, and saying this is the best we can do. I think we can do better, and I love the idea about a workshop and tabling this tonight.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that. And let me say, I'm not necessarily against that, but if we do a workshop, we're going to be, like, we have to have a starting off point. So if we do a workshop, we're starting off with this document. And we take things out and we put things in. So it'd be the same thing. We have to have a starting off document. We can't start with a blank sheet of paper. So we'll be starting off with this document, and when we have a workshop, we'll go section by section. Same thing we're doing right now. We'll go section by section, and you'll feel like there's certain things we should take out, or there's certain things we should leave in.
Which is the same thing we're doing now,
It's
pretty
the
much.
same exact thing we're doing right now.
I think we should keep going
And we
let's
wasted,
not waste no
we
time.
spent 30 minutes
It was
where we would have been on
properly
page
advertised.
5 right now.
Mr. Mayor, this meeting was properly advertised, okay? And everything was on the agenda. We should proceed.
Go ahead with 572 then, Mayor. Just see if anybody has comments, because it's long to read.
Let's move on. 5.72, issuance of a license or renewal of a license shall be denied, and any license issued hereunder may be revoked for cause for any of the following reasons. The applicant does not own the vacation rental. Anybody have a problem with that? We good? Number 2, the applicant's license under this section for any property has been revoked for cause within 2 years of the date of application. We good? The license issued under this section for a vacation rental for that dwelling unit has been revoked for cause within 2 years of the date of application. We good with that? Number 4, the applicant makes any false, misleading, or fraudulent statement or misrepresents any fact in the license application or uses any scheme or subterfuge for the purpose of evading any provision of this chapter. Pretty self-explanatory. You have a problem with that, Pascal? You have a problem with number 3? The license issued under this section for any vacation rental for that dwelling unit has been revoked for cause within 2 years of the date of the application?
Yes, so
Okay.
Pascal DePool, Northwest 90th, it's 177 Northwest 90th Street. The way I understand that, and please correct me if I'm wrong, counsel, is that number 2 talks about the applicant, if he has a problem, and number 3 talks about the property, if that has a problem.
Yes.
So if the property has a problem and I sell the property, does that 2 years transfer to the next owner? Or can the next owner, let's say I get my license revoked, I sell the property 6 months afterwards, can the new owner not use that property as a short-term rental? That's how I read this.
I think that's what it says.
So I would disagree with that because it has nothing to do with the house, because the house didn't do anything wrong. If I do something as an owner and if I sell it, I don't want to have a negative impact on my sale because the previous owner did something wrong.
The issue though, sir, let me just say that the reason that they have this is because I don't completely agree with Mr. Navarro about number 7. I don't think it says what he thinks it says about corporate ownership. And if it was only, is it a different owner, you can have someone transfer serially from one corporation to a next corporation to the next corporation to the next corporation and really completely evade number 2 because you can say, oh, it's a new owner, whether or not it's actually an arm's length sale, we may not even know if a new corporation comes along, there could be a different manager, but the same owner or the same principal. That's the reason, and it doesn't apply if there's just been a suspension. There has to be an actual revocation of a license. So I appreciate your point, but without something that says that if it's, I mean, because it can be very difficult to determine if it's really a bona fide purchaser at an arm's length sale. And we certainly don't want to have something that you just spend a couple $100, set up a new corporation, transfer the ownership and say, now I'm relieved.
I understand that, but this would punish a buyer that may want to run a short-term rental, may have a different one where his license is perfectly in order and he's great for the community to do it, that now would get punished for somebody else. I just want to make sure I understand that, but if that's the case, then I disagree with how this is written.
Say your name and address for the record, please.
You know, and on that point, then
Say your
wouldn't
name and
that,
address- say your name and
excuse me,
address,
Calixto Navarro, 335 Northeast 87th Street. You know, going back to that section, I'm glad he brought that up because that becomes an issue for a future buyer. You know, it's kind of like you're buying property with, you know, a title issue, basically. That would definitely tarnish the the value of the home. You know, you're buying a property that has a title issue. Imagine, you know, you're not really conveying a free and clear title to a buyer. Could you imagine what that does to your property? It's not really clear.
Well, the thing, Mr. Navarro, though, is that what it does, frankly, I mean, if it's certainly something you would need to disclose as a seller. So what it does, the person that's being punished really is not as much the new buyer. It's the seller because it restricts the seller's ability to sell it for that purpose. And yes, if you're a seller and you've had your license revoked, not you, sir, but someone has behaved badly to the point they've got their license revoked, yes, it will limit their potential pool of buyers in terms of people who want to operate that business. So the seller may receive some less money at sale because they've done something that violated this, and they're going to have some financial consequence. But as I said, if not, you have a circumstance where you can just transfer title to another corporation and continue on your merry way. So yes,
Yeah.
you're correct.
I
It
mean-
would have an impact on the seller.
But okay, and here, this is where I go. Now, let's take the process further. So then now you have a conveyance of this tarnished title of property. You sell it under market value. So then somebody who's trying to sell an El Portal, Mr. So-and-so, and now he has a comparable at a lower price. Do you understand where we're going? I mean, we're creating this whole...
Excuse me, but
You know.
I'm sorry, Calixto, but has nothing to do with the property value. This
No.
is just making
No,
sure
but-
that the person that had the license revoked, doesn't create another, like the lawyer just explained it, right and simple. Don't create another company just to buy and then
I
get the
know,
license
but
again.
I think what
And
we're-
this is just a punishment, I'm sorry, for not a punishment. It's just a regulation that will be for 2 years. So
Mm-hmm. But-
the new owner, if it's a regular residential, owner, just want to leave the house, they're not thinking about renting, the property value shouldn't affect the fact that they cannot rent or Airbnb or short-term
no,
rental.
but
no?
it does, because let's say that, okay, whoever, the unscrupulous or whatever business owner says, okay, I'm done with this, whatever, I'm dumping the house, okay? But it has this, it's a
You could
let's
also-
not get into this because
But
we're
you
gonna
could
be here all
also,
night, but, you
one
know.
other thing you could do, counsel, is if you're concerned about the points that the last two gentlemen have raised, you could say that an operator can't continue to operate if he's had a license revoked within 2 years in number 2, but number 3 doesn't have to be the same 2 years. You could bring that down to a year or 18 months. It would still be a penalty on the seller, frankly, but you could mitigate it for purposes of a new buyer. You're actually correct, of course, Councilperson Perella, but I mean, there are other ways you can address that
Right.
by maybe saying, well, if it's a bona fide sale, if you can show that it's actually, not to a related party or something, that it's only a year
Right,
or 18
like
months.
the executive, they print up the whatever certificate from the state of Florida. But anyway, I think that, these, like I said, section 1.1, that I think that there's a way that, just say ban out people who rent a property. They say, okay, I want to rent it to these people. I don't want to have worry-free. You just need an affidavit from the homeowner, that should anything happen, your rental contract is null and void and your deposits are kept. It would keep whoever's renting that would like to do that, they can, with a penalty. And then,
People lie on affidavits, Mr. Navarro.
Excuse me?
People lie on their affidavits. I see it every day. They can give an affidavit, doesn't mean that it's the truth.
no, but you get the owner to sign it. I mean, listen.
Right,
We
you're saying for subleasing.
Yeah, if they're gonna sublease, that the owner of the property has to know, and he has to, if there should be a problem, the city would notify, the contract is null and void, and their deposits are kept.
That's a good.
And it's out, and you
It could
get
be
them
a
out.
student renting the house and then renting the rooms to make. a
Yeah,
living. And then he could help him,
You-
yes.
You
I
under,
agree.
so those are things that we need to look at, and you just have to make an affidavit, and once the person knows, the owner, because they can't use that thing, like we've heard in here, oh, I didn't know I rented it to somebody. No, and you know that the lease agreements in the Florida bar says you have to check off the box if you're gonna sublease. So, that's not a very good excuse. But anyway.
Ian McKenzie, 8950 Northeast 4th Avenue. I'd just like to make a comment about number 3. So what our attorney is saying is the possibility of someone who, let's say I have a spouse and the property's in my name, what's preventing me from quit claiming the property to my spouse? That happens, one filing like that. Suddenly, that 2 years gone out the window. It could be a problem property, instantly solved, right? Good. Okay, so that's a legal factor. The other thing is, I'm not a realtor. My brother is. He's a very good realtor. He's in Palm Beach. But when I bought my property here, my property increased the first month after I bought it, $100,000. Second month, another $100,000. That was not because of Airbnb. Okay? That was just because the way El Portal was, the way the community was, the housing bubble. So I just wanted to let people know that property values increase for other reasons. Okay? And we buy here for residential concerns and to have a nice neighborhood. I certainly would not ever buy a house knowing that there's an Airbnb next door to me. I would not. I go on record for that. Okay? The other thing is I'd like to ask, for the board members, how many people do operate Airbnbs, or is there anybody who is a realtor or has an interest in that? Because I think that's a fair disclosure that should be made. Thank you
So-
very much.
So I'll
Any
say.
questions, or?
No, I'll just say I have a real estate license, and so I'm familiar with certainly all of the housing issues that are going on, and I don't mind disclosing that my personal belief is that short-term rentals are sucking so much inventory out of the market that it's compounding some of the issues with affordability and low-income housing, housing availability. So I agree, actually, that short-term rentals do increase property values, but one of the problems with that is that it's increasing rents. So in addition to that, I find that if I'm helping someone who's looking for a rental, for example, 80% of the units that are available for rent are owned by an LLC of some kind, and it might be someone just who has their own LLC for their benefit of taxes and whatnot, having a business, right? But then some of them are larger LLCs that actively buy whole sections of properties for the explicit purpose of exploiting them for short-term rentals. So in that, I certainly agree that a balance has to be struck, or else we will lose part of what makes our community very unique. And so really a lot of what we're limited to has to do with what Tallahassee has put upon what we can and cannot do. And so I guess I'm not against short-term rentals, and at the same time, I'm not in favor of short-term rentals, but just trying to find an equitable solution, because there are, first of all, Tallahassee has said we cannot prohibit short-term rentals, so we're going to have them.
Right.
So then what do we do in that framework to ensure that the community remains, as we wish it to be? And I do also agree with many of the operators that are here tonight that, a lot of properties are run well, managed well, and do not, disturb the neighbors, whereas you're going to have another one next door that does, right? And so not all operators are created equally, and so not all operators are manage their entities equally. I'll say that. And so I think it's a complicated issue. I mean, it clearly is. I mean, Tallahassee thought enough to really interject themselves into all of this, and so so it's not easy. But
No, I think that's why we need to have this serious and thorough discussion about this and make sure that everybody knows about this in the community, and that's really important.
Well, so I'm a wage earner most of my life, and so most of my life I've been a renter, and so I consider it important, the issue of low-income housing and housing availability, because it affects a lot more people than the issues of some of the more luxury aspects of housing.
Let's make it clear, though, short-term rental for a day or two is not affordable housing we're looking at. That's a separate issue.
No, right.
Okay, that's
I'm saying, but when you're taking inventory out, that could be, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, so we need to be very careful when we state that, because that's an issue in itself. I'm not necessarily totally against it. I thought about I have a 103-year-old mother living with me, okay, in El Portal. She's probably the oldest resident in this community, as I know of.
That's wonderful.
And, anyhow, I do know the fact that when she goes, I'm thinking, well, I've got a 3-bedroom home, 3-bathroom. It's like I could rent out one of these rooms technically as an Airbnb. I'd want to be there because I got possessions. I want to protect the place and be there. So, that's always a possibility for me. But already there are 4 Airbnbs on 90th Street that I know of. So, I mean, we need to make sure that these rules are done properly for everybody. And I don't think it's been really, the residents really know what's going on here. And that's why I'm speaking out about this issue right now.
No, I think someone, it might have been yourself, someone brought up elevation as a factor of home values. So understand that the full weight of multiple billions of dollars of investors are currently descending on every lot of land from just north of Miami Shores from just north of Miami Shores all the way down to Buena
Little Haiti,
Vista,
yeah.
right?
All that area.
And so it will take a concerted effort and even a fight at some point to preserve what it is that we have here. I'm convinced of that for sure.
Okay, well, thank you.
Okay, you guys, our developers from Serbia have something that may work for all of us. You guys know I'm about compromise. This may be a good compromise for all of us. I'm noticing that, let me just let Juan talk. Go ahead, Juan.
Good evening, everybody, Mr. Mayor, Council. Juan Mullerat, Plus Serbia Design. I was just mentioning to the mayor that, you know, as you said, Councilperson Lightfoot Ward, this is an important issue. We could put a survey up for a month, table this, have everybody, you know, we gather data. We've got 5 residents, 5, 6, 7 residents here. You've got more than 2,000 residents. Maybe we can get more information. The next time that you bring this to the council, you'll have data, you'll have more opinions from more people, and you can run this item much faster because you will know from them what they like, what they don't. We will post the ordinance as it is and get people to give us their opinion. Just a thought.
Well,
Because
I think part of the mayor's point has been that we've essentially discussed this on the council for years, multiple years. And so, I mean, at some point, the council just needs to make a decision on this and get us moving forward, and then whatever challenges are brought out of it are that's going to happen either way. I mean, we're not going to please all the people all the time on this one. So my concern is that if we do continue kicking this can is just going to disappear on us.
I'm gonna come to you right now, Attorney Geller, but let me just say this, you guys. I think that the majority of our problem, and you know, it might be better to table and stuff like that, but the majority of our problem, I think, is that like we're going off on tangents. Like we began talking about numbers 2 and 3. That's all that we should have been talking about. Was numbers 2 and 3. And that's the issue. That's why it's taking so long. Attorney Geller.
Mayor, let me say, to go back to what Councilperson Perella said, which I think is what the Vice Mayor just echoed, that doesn't mean that you can't and shouldn't do what Juan has just recommended. Those are not mutually exclusive. You could still get through this tonight on first reading, if that's your pleasure, and still have Plus Serbia post this survey, which certainly sounds like a good idea to get the opinions of more than the half a dozen or so people that are here tonight. That's always a good thing, and you could have that done and just have that come to you to inform your conversation 5-6 weeks from now on second reading. So you don't have to table it. You can get through first reading if that's your pleasure, but it sounds like doing this survey will, I mean, there's never, I don't know when more information was not a good idea.
Thank you, Attorney Geller. Thank you. The council, what say you? I mean, we have the idea from Juan, which I think we should probably do anyway, because we still have a second reading that we have to do. So that would still be good anyway going into the second reading. How do you guys feel right now?
Let's go through it.
I hear you, Councilperson.
Let's just finish with this. I mean, I need to go home to a wife that's in pain, okay, by herself. And I'm still here, hearing everything. So let's just go through it and get it done.
I just have one thing to say. I'm going home now, by the way. I second that. What would I have loved to hear? I hear representations of realtors versus this, versus that, and the other. Don't really care. I think this thing will pass one way or the other in a format that is acceptable to everyone, because it's always about meeting each other halfway. I would have loved to hear about, hey, paving the road, planting trees, doing this and that, the other, talking about increasing the value of El Portal instead of all this nitpicking and tiny things that can be resolved easily. So, you know, it has been a pleasure. Good night.
Thank you. So, I think where we're at, I'm just one person, you guys. So what do you guys feel as a council? I think that we could, everybody out there, how do you guys feel? Go to 4? Let's go for it. All right, let's do some speed reading, you guys. All right, everybody has it in front of them? You guys good? For the council, we heard a lot about number 3, but I'm assuming we're going to keep number 3 on there. Everybody good with number 3 on there? Or are we going to, you guys want to? We can always amend it on second reading. For right now, we're going to keep number 3? Yes. Okay. Name and address for the record.
Lionel Mouton, 75 Northeast 90th Street. Basically, I'm here because I have an Airbnb. Okay, you start talking about corporations and all this other stuff. It's like, that's fine. But most of us here have a single Airbnb, and then you start talking about fees. What fees are we talking about? Because Airbnb, we're paying occupancy fees on everything every time we rent. Airbnb pays occupancy fees. And now you guys are saying something about additional licenses requirements. That's where you lost me, because that's not in here. It just talk about vacation rentals, and then they talk about short-term leases. Which is which? Short-term leases, Airbnbs, vacation rentals, long-term? It's confusing.
So Attorney Gill, this is better for you, but if I'm not mistaken, so we're talking about short-term rentals. That's kind of like where we got into the discussion. Short-term rentals, which also is what we call vacation rentals.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're talking about, okay, short-term rentals, vacation rentals, one and the same? Is that what you're saying?
Basically, yes. Basically, those are similar. Not all vacation, let me put it the other way. A vacation rental is typically shorter than all short-term rentals. You can have a short-term rental that's like a seasonal rental, or you can have a vacation rental that's more likely to be, you know, a week or a weekend or something at a time. This would cover both, but it, you know, if you have a little, if you're doing it in your own name, if it's your property, you'd still be allowed to do it. If you're doing it through a corporation, you're still, you know, that's your corporation, you'll still be allowed to do it. It does set some standards. If you're a careful, good operator, that shouldn't affect you much. There are some charges for it that are not completely different than what we have on the books today. There's an application so they can do some checking out, and there is some attempt to set some kind of minimum standards, you know, that probably won't impact you as much as if it's something that some guy who lives in New Hampshire wants to rent out a property that he bought here, and then if there's a problem, he ain't around. If you're here and, you know, it's your property and you're looking after it, most of those shouldn't negatively impact you. They're just trying to make sure there is somebody around, not a post office box in New Hampshire.
Right, okay, I understand that. That's not a problem. Because, yeah, that's, well, what I was hearing was like these different fees, and I'm like, what's that all about?
Well, there's some few $100s that, you know, pretty much every city charges, because there is some cost to, you know, patrol and regulating, making sure. But most of the others, I mean, listen, nobody likes to pay a fee or an occupational license, whatever, I get that. But most of the others, if it's your property and you're here and you're looking after it, most of those other rules will not negatively impact you.
Yeah, okay. I'm there.
All right. Thank you very much, you guys. Thank you. You guys, number 4 says the applicant, so we're talking about denial or revoking of the license. The applicant makes any false, misleading, or fraudulent statement or misrepresents any fact in the license application or uses any scheme or subterfuge for the purpose of evading any provision of this chapter. Anybody have a problem with that? You good? Okay. Number 5, the applicant fails to establish through documentary proof that it has either registered with the Florida Department of Revenue for sales tax collection, registered with the Miami-Dade County Tax Collector for tourist and convention development taxes on transient rentals, obtained a business tax receipt from Miami-Dade County if required, and obtained a business tax receipt from the Village of El Portal. So if those things aren't done,
I want to add, Mayor, we had a resident last time who was insisting that he did not need a license under Dade County, and the ordinance said he did have to get one anyway, and that's why we put in the if required, was specifically
perfect.
to take care of that gentleman who was here last time who raised that issue.
Perfect.
So
I
we
do remember
listened
that.
to you, and you have a point.
Very good. Number 6, the applicant fails to establish proof of licensure with the Florida Department of Business and Professional Regulation for a transient public lodging establishment. If the applicant is a corporation, general partnership, limited liability company, or trustee, this is the one that a lot of people are asking about, and any principal thereof, including but not necessarily limited to officers, directors, general partners, managers, trustees, or beneficiaries, would be ineligible to receive a license under this section. Such ineligibility shall be imputed and applicable to said applicant.
And Mayor, let me address Mr. Navarro on that. That doesn't say you can't do it through a corporation. It only says if you personally, no, it wouldn't be you, Mr. Navarro, and I get that, but if you personally were in violation and you're the principal, you can't say, oh, it's not me, it's my corporation, so they can do whatever, they can operate, even though you couldn't do it in your own name. You can still have your corporation, but if the principal of the corporation is ineligible, so is your corporation. That's all it says. It will not stop you from doing business as long as you're still on the straight. As long as you're doing the right thing and you ain't in trouble, you can do whatever, run it however you want to. That's all that says.
Pascal, come up and say your name and address for the record. Some people are cold out there. Clerk, to call you. Everybody feel good? You guys cold? It's cold? It's not.
Pascal DePool, 177 Northwest 90th Street. Mr. Geller, so if I understand you correctly, because how I read this, it says if I own my home in an LLC, that LLC is ineligible to apply for this license.
No, sir.
That's,
No, sir. Let me just, the key phrase here is if the any principal is ineligible for a license, then the corporation of the principal is also ineligible. That's all it says.
it says if the applicant is a corporation,
Yeah,
which I would be if I own my home in an LLC,
yeah.
then I'm ineligible.
No, sir, that's not what, let me read it again, okay? It goes on to say, and any principal thereof,
Right.
parenthetical phrase, would be ineligible to receive a license. If the principal is ineligible, then that ineligibility is imputed to your corporation. But if the principal is not ineligible, there's no restriction at all on the corporation being licensed. It is only to say, if, again, I'm sure it wouldn't be you, sir, but if you were ineligible for one of the other reasons, had been revoked or whatever, you can't say, it ain't me, it's my corporation.
But where does it say that I have to be ineligible in this? I don't see that in this paragraph. I'm not a lawyer.
And any principle thereof, parenthetical phrase, would be ineligible.
Yes, I'm ineligible to get the license if
If you
as a corporation,
personally
yes.
have been declared ineligible, then the corporation cannot.
Where does it say, though, that that officer has to be ineligible? Because I don't see ineligible
It says,
in
"And
this.
any principle thereof."
Yes, but where's the ineligible? Yes.
And then there's a parenthetical phrase, and at the end of the parentheses, it says, "would be ineligible." And any principle thereof would be ineligible. If the principle is ineligible.
Okay. So because how I'm, again, I'm not a lawyer, so I don't understand this. What you're saying is if the principal is ineligible, the LLC cannot get the license.
That's correct.
But how this reads to me is either if this is owned by an LLC or if the principal
No.
of the LLC.
It's not
Okay.
or, it's an and.
Can that get reworded somehow, that this is a little bit more easy
Sir,
to read?
I apologize to you, and I understand, but that's a matter of statutory construction.
Okay.
That's the language that's used to indicate what I just said.
That's fine.
The way to read it, let me say again, there's a big long parenthetical phrase. Delete that in your mind. If it says, if the owner is a corporation,
Gotcha.
and
No,
any principle thereof would be ineligible.
understood.
That's the language, and that's all that means. It does not mean you can't have corporate ownership.
Perfect.
It just means if you're ineligible, your corporation is also ineligible. That's because it's an and, not an or.
Understood. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Moving on, the next one, number 8. Everybody good with number 7, right? The next one, number 8, failure of the condominium association where the property is located to adopt provisions which approve or permit the use of the premises for vacation rentals. All right, we currently don't have condominiums in El Portal, but it's good to have it because just for the future. We always prepare for the future. Yeah, we got the Cavisa. Yeah, we got that. Absolutely. Absolutely. All right, so everybody go with number 8. Number 9, lapse of insurance required under this section. I think that's self-explanatory, right? You let your insurance lapse. Number 10, the applicant fails to provide an approved inspection report of the fire marshal verifying compliance with the fire marshal's criteria for such use. We good with that? Everybody good with that? Fire marshal, yeah, it makes it sound like a big business. Attorney Geller, number 10. I had a question mark about that also, because it makes it sound like, because when you talk about fire marshal, it makes it sound like a big, like a.
Yeah, like what? It's a bit confusing. What, the applicant fails to provide a proof inspection report of the fire marshal, so we have to, like, who?
It's typically going to be applicable to multifamily structures.
Oh, okay.
I don't typically think the fire marshal gets involved with single family, but we are not exclusively a single family community, and we are beginning to see more development. So if you have a property that is a multifamily property where it could be even the rental structure that we have going up, if they decided to start renting out their units, if they decided to start renting out their units in that building, the fire marshal may well have comment about it, and you have to comply. Now, fire marshal, to my knowledge, doesn't walk in a single family, but this is designed to cover the whole village, not just, people who have single family residences, and we're seeing more development, particularly in our annexed area. We have other property available for development. We have a new form-based code that, is designed by our planning professionals to cover increased density of development, and so our ordinance needs to reflect those things as well.
Okay. Calixto Navarro, 335 Northeast 87th Street. No, number 10, then just, I don't know, just clarify, say, this is for multifamily
I mean,
use.
we could put if applicable. at the
If
end.
there's a,
If applicable,
At the end.
because I could see
the
you
fire
coming in.
marshal will not, but let me say, if next month they pass something that said we've had too many problems with single families, and we're gonna tell the fire marshal to start looking at them, we're not gonna be able to say no to that. I mean, if the fire marshal has something to say, I mean, I don't know if you were storing some kind of hazardous flammable materials. Could the fire marshal come to a single-family residence if you were cited for that? I surely don't want to be in the position where we are denying the fire marshal whatever authority they have under state law. So,
And that would fall under the county's jurisdiction, correct?
not necessarily. The state has regulations about that as well,
Okay. Thank you.
but
So then,
probably not going to affect you.
so then Attorney Geller, does the language with the compliance with the fire marshal's criteria for such use, does that cover, the fire marshal's criteria is only going to essentially cover the buildings that he is responsible for checking, which would be those
Yes, sir.
most multifamily, right?
Well, like I said, could there be a circumstance where somebody called the fire marshal and said there are multiple flammable gas canisters stuck in somebody's backyard? You better get over here and take a look. I wouldn't want to tell the fire marshal they couldn't look at that. So, you know, whatever their authority under law is, we're bound by anyway.
Okay.
I mean, frankly, if we didn't mention it, they would still have the authority, whatever authority state law gives them. So we're sort of just putting people on notice of it.
Perfect. Yes,
Pascal
Councilperson
Poole,
Lightfoot Ward.
177 Northwest 90th Street.
Councilperson Lightfoot Ward.
What Attorney Geller has said in my past life, you want the fire marshal mentioning this. You really do. I know a lot of people don't see the fire marshal, but that's a very intricate part of city and local and state government. You want the fire marshal in this. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councilperson Lightfoot Ward. Pascal.
So the criteria word basically here is the same as if applicable?
No, not really. I mean, it's not. The state law gives certain authority to fire marshals. Whether we write if applicable or not, the state law is the state law. If it's something where the fire marshal has jurisdiction, like I said, typically that's multifamily. But like I said, if you looked in your neighbor's backyard one day and saw, you know, a bunch of storage tanks for something that could, you know, if somebody lit a match, could blow up the whole neighborhood, you want to be able to call the fire marshal and say, get over here and do something about this, even if it's the backyard of a single-family home. So whatever state law is, we're bound by it. Whether we have this paragraph and whether it says if applicable, whatever the authority of the fire marshal is, it is, and that's it.
So then why have it in here at all?
Because it puts people on notice that they better be concerned about not having fire hazards.
But I should know that because I'm under state law.
You should know that.
Okay. So why not rewrite all of state law in here?
Because that's not how I draft. I drafted this, I thought it was appropriate. Other city attorneys have included this provision in their municipal ordinances. I think it's a valuable and worthwhile advisory to people to remember that they do need to comply, and it's particularly relevant as we start to get multifamily. But whether we took it out, it wouldn't change anything if we took it out, but I would rather put people on notice. That's how I draft it.
But if applicable would not negate this or change this, so why not add that? Just so when we read it,
Because it's not
we understand
necessary
it.
to add it, sir. That's how I write. I mean, that's why I'm, with all deference.
Right.
That's why I went to law school. That's why I took courses in statutory construction.
Right.
That's why I write things the way I do it, and I've been doing it for 40 years.
But
So,
you wrote, if applicable, on the Miami-Dade business license tax as
Correct.
well, for the same reason, because.
no, not for the same reason.
Okay,
Let's
all right, thank you.
let's look at it like this. So for number 10, the fire marshal's criteria, you know, if it doesn't fall into the fire marshal's criteria, there's a certain criteria, and that's kind of like, you know, that kind of like displays or defines whether a certain property falls into the criteria or not. The word criteria being there.
And
Something like that.
I would offer also that, Attorney Geller, correct me if I'm wrong, but part of the reason for feeling that that is important to include as far as putting people on notice is that a great many of the fire codes throughout the United States and really the world have been driven by incidents that have happened specifically at hotels. So this is certainly, when you have people who are unfamiliar with their surroundings, this issue of flammability specifically becomes incredibly important. And honestly, all the operators would do well to cover their own liability by acknowledging that as well. And I'll leave it on a light note.
You're correct.
Quote from one of my favorite comedians said, if you are flammable and you have legs, you are never blocking a fire exit.
Number 11, you guys. I always defer to, you know, the attorney because he's the attorney. When I read this, look in my notes, I had if applicable, but once you started talking, I crossed it out because I said, okay, you know, he knows more about law than I do. So I was kind of on the same page, but I crossed it after that. Number 11, the applicant fails to provide a copy of the form vacation rental license agreement to be used when contracting with any occupant for the use of the vacation rental. Anybody have a problem with that one? No, we're good. Number 12, the applicant or vacation rental are in violation of any of the standards of operation provided under this section. That's pretty self-explanatory. Next is this paragraph. The application for a license under this chapter must be made to the village manager or his or her. Oh, his. Oh, duh. Now, my village manager is a woman, a strong.
Mayor, while you're doing that,
Yes.
while you're doing that, that was one of my requests is that we do gender neutral
Yeah, absolutely.
throughout this.
Absolutely. That's what I put in my notes right here. Absolutely. Must be made to the village manager or designee on appropriate forms generated by them for such purpose. The application for a license under this section must contain A, the name, address of the applicant, and contact information, including phone number and email address for the local contact person within Miami-Dade County, and attached to the application shall be an owner affidavit and an affidavit from the local contact person attesting that the person, number one, is authorized by the owner to take remedial action and respond to any violation of this code. Number two, maintains a residence or office located in Miami-Dade County. The application shall also set forth the name, address, and telephone number from an individual within Miami-Dade County authorized to accept service of process upon the applicant. You were good so far?
One point on that is that was a compromise. There are a number of jurisdictions that don't say within Miami-Dade County, but say within 30-minute drive under normal circumstances of the proposed rental, on the theory that somebody living in Allendale can get here pretty quickly, but somebody living in Homestead may not be able to. That may be an hour and a half to get here from Homestead. So I drafted it as Miami-Dade County, but one option is to include some kind of either a time or a distance. You could say X many miles of the rental. Both of those would be valid. Those are things you should consider. Miami-Dade County, I mean, I put it there, but there are other standards that might make more sense.
I got you. Everybody good? We're good. If applicable, Attached to each application shall be an affidavit executed by a duly authorized representative of the condominium association attesting that the dwelling unit can be used as a vacation rental and specifically identifying all the other dwelling units in the condominium approved to be used as vacation rentals. Exactly. As a condition of the license shall keep all information current. That's pretty self-explanatory. Any change in required information shall be reported to the village within 30 days after the change. That's good. Such applications shall also include documents sufficient to prove the applicant's current ownership of the property, that the applicant has registered with the Florida Department of Revenue for sales tax collection and any applicable county taxes, that the applicant has been licensed with the Florida Department of Business and Professional Regulation to operate the premises as a transient public lodging establishment. It shall be unlawful for any person to give any false or misleading information in connection with the application for registration required by this section. Very good. The application must agree to indemnify the village from any cost or expense reasonably incurred by the village in the course of enforcing the standards prescribed herein, as well as any claim against the village arising from the licensed activity. The village will only accept an application that contains all of the information set forth in this subsection. Upon receipt of a completed application, the village shall apply the standards set forth in this article to determine whether to accept or reject the application within 10 business days. The village manager or designee is authorized to generate all forms, applications, and permits which are necessary and appropriate for the section. The village manager designee must complete unlicensed in business days. If the applicant is denied in writing on a section, so that's pretty self-explanatory. Insurance required, section 573. Prior to the insurance of any license under this article, each applicant shall furnish a certificate of insurance evidencing homeowners' fire, hazard and liability insurance, and general commercial liability insurance with limits of not less than $1 million per occurrence. Combined single limit for bodily injury, personal injury, and property damage arising in any way from the insurance of any of the license or activities conducted pursuant to the license. The licensee shall maintain the insurance required under this section in full force and effect for the duration of the license period. Anybody have any questions about this insurance area? Nope. Okay. Standards of operation, 574. A, no licensee shall rent or lease any vacation rental unless it is in full compliance with the minimum housing standards ordinance. B, the licensee shall at times maintain current guest registration records which contain the following information about each guest: guest name, home address, signature, and dates of accommodation. The registration records shall be kept on file for 3 years and made available for inspection by village residents during regular business hours or upon demand in the case of emergency. I think that for most of these things, when the person applies and stuff, you have all that information, I believe. Pascal, go on, come on up. Come on. So we're talking about B. Pascal, go up here first. Say your name, address, whatever.
Pascal DePool, 177 Northwest 90th Street. Why are we requiring this? Because you're asking me if I have 6 guests coming, if I have a family of 6 staying at my place, you're requiring me to get a signature, name, check-in date, addresses, all those things for every person that's there. Usually on a booking, I get the first guest from Airbnb or from VRBO, or if I'm doing it outside of any of those. If we do a self-check-in, which means the guest can access the house by themselves and not have me here, you're basically telling me that I now need to go, if guests are coming, get all this information. We've had multiple times where it's a group of friends staying, they come over 2 or 3 days, which means I would have to come 2 or 3 times. Like Attorney Geller has said, people rely on affidavits. I've had people say, hey, we have 2 people coming in, turns out there's 6. What if I have 6 people in? I have a record of 2. My reservation was under 2. This is a lot of work for us, and I don't see a reason for it to be there. Plus, keeping this information safe for 3 years, where am I supposed to keep it? How am I liable against it if somebody cracks my stuff? I know when I'm doing long-term rentals, I need to destroy a social security number as soon as I have a credit report run. I'm not allowed to keep it. I understand there's no social security number in here, but there's a bunch of personal information in here. There's a lot of work for us in this one thing, and I don't see a reason to have this. So I'd love to hear from the council why you're requiring us to, excuse me, to collect all this data and what we're doing with it.
The thing that I would say, and I'll just start off for the council. The thing that I would say is that I'm not against not getting the information for each guest, because for example, when somebody applies through whatever website or whatever it is, there's an initial, like there's a primary guest with the primary information, primary name, primary for everything, correct? All right. I wouldn't be against necessarily that, because if anything goes wrong with any of the guests, then that primary person is the one held responsible.
But why does the village need that information? Because you're holding me liable for any issues that are arising on the property, not my guest. You're creating a lot of work for me as a host. You don't require this for me on a long-term rental. You don't require me to submit to you who I'm renting a house for over a year, over 6 months. When that lease starts, when that lease ends, their phone number, their signature. That's only for this, and I don't see the valid reason why.
I mean, I hear what you're saying about, the village, because you're the one that's the licensee, so the village like holds you responsible.
Well,
but I don't know, at the same time, if anything goes wrong, I would say that, but you do, but hold on, in a way though, you do still have access to the information of the primary guest.
I don't have a signature.
But not signature, but I'm just saying that the name and the access, when somebody.
I don't have a home address.
You don't have a home address?
I have a guest's name. I don't have a home address. I don't have a signature, and I have dates of accommodation. So I have 2. I don't have 4.
So when somebody reserves through whatever it is, it's the name that you get, the first and the full name, and the dates of accommodation, and that's it.
A phone number.
An email.
And the phone number and email.
But again, why do we need this, or why do you need this? Because if something happens, this whole regulation is about
you,
the village saying, I'm responsible for all of this.
The licensee.
Now, of course, I need to know the people. I know how to get a hold of them. But why does the village need access to that? You don't have it on my long-term rentals, and you're creating, especially on the signature side. And if I'm staying at an Airbnb, why am I giving somebody a home address? I mean, I would be uncomfortable with that if I'm renting an Airbnb for a job. I just was in Orlando on an Airbnb. The person doesn't need to know where I live.
And this might cause problems because also if Airbnb doesn't require it and you're asking for it, then individuals might feel like you're going far and beyond Airbnb, and therefore they might feel like you're doing something or you want their information for something that's like mischievous. Because Airbnb doesn't even ask for this, so why the hell are you asking for it, basically? That makes a lot of sense. I mean, when I went through my notes, next to this, what I had was a question mark, and I had an E for, is this excessive? That's what I have in my notes, a question mark with an E, which I have for some other things also. So, I mean, the reason why I had an E for is this excessive with a question mark was because the only thing that I was thinking was it's not fair to have to get all the guest information. But I wasn't thinking about, the one guest information.
And then if I say I have 4 guests staying and they have a friend come over to visit, do I need to have his signature the day that he was there?
So for me personally, I had the E for excessive with a question mark because I didn't think that it's necessarily fair to have to get all of the guests information. But I was still, for one guest, I was still not thinking about getting rid of that though, the one guest. I mean, you're making good points. But Council, what do you think about that with the one guest? I was for getting rid of having to get all of the guest information, and I was for getting rid of having to get the signatures also. That's why I had this in my notes.
Well, the note I have is registered guest, which I'm kind of using as the principal person who puts the reservation under their name, right? The whoever it is. And so,
Well, if I may, we had a case where the police have to go and everything. It was an Airbnb being rent or
They need
a
a starting
short-term
point.
rental, and the owner of the place, which happens to be a lady, so these two guys with other names that wasn't the person that she rented to, and then she called the police saying that, you know, there's people in my house trying to get in, and I rented to them. So she deleted actually the reservation and everything, and it was a whole situation because of that, actually.
But in
So
that
the
case, I
police
can,
was called, they were there, and, you know, it was the whole.
in that case, I can pull up an Airbnb record and say, here, I rented this to Tom, and I have Susie here.
Mhm.
I don't need to keep a log
Right.
that's for 3 years with all of this
Yeah,
information
it shouldn't
on
be
all of these
kept
guests.
for 3 years, because I would think that this is more for if something happens, or, you know, why keep it for 3 years? I don't
Why
understand.
not say the host has to give El Portal access to, or be able to provide El Portal with the name and the phone number of a guest? Because something happens, the police can call me, they have my number, obviously, because it's and say, hey, Pascal, who's in this house? And
Right.
I can say, let me look it up, it's Tom, here's his phone number, go check it out. To keep a log is a ton of work for us.
Mhm.
It adds work, it kills half of our workflow if we're doing a self-check-in, where we don't even have to do anything with guests, especially with COVID. A lot of people don't like to meet us in person. They want to be able to go in the house by themselves and not have to deal with anybody. If I'm now showing up and asking for signatures and home addresses, I'm pretty intrusive there.
so this might be a question for the attorney then, but, you know, firstly, this is not an specifically Airbnb ordinance. This is trying to catch all short-term rentals. And so, my understanding of the reason for this piece specifically is that if there was an occurrence, there would be a starting point of someone to go and talk to about an incident that might have happened, right? And so I worked in bars for a lot of years, and police show up in bars the next day after there's a report of date rape and things like this, right? We need to understand who they with, was it a real ID, who asked for the ID, do you know, what staff of yours remembers the person, this type of thing, right? So that was my kind of understanding of why that language is there. But if, I mean, this is why I'm at Attorney Geller, is there a way to add language that would say if you have a record through an agency such as Airbnb or Verbo, whatever it is, would that qualify as the registration required? You understand, if there's already a record of it, does that record that already exists qualify for meeting these standards? And that's my question, I guess.
You could change this any number of ways. You could reduce the length of time it has to be kept. You can decide whether you want that information for every guest that's going to be there. You can change it to say that the owner is required to maintain it but not necessarily furnish it. I mean, it has to be written somehow, and then you can change it however you want. The one thing I would urge you not to change is to have a physical, actual home residence of whoever it is that you're asking for the information for. Because people, you know, drop their email addresses, you can't reach them. Phone numbers are what they are, but if you had an actual serious incident, you'd want to be able to have an actual physical address for the person. Now, are they giving you actual information? Is the owner going to be required to see some kind of an ID to verify that that's their real physical address? Is it made up? Is it valid? Have they changed it? Is their documents, you know, phony? I mean, those are all issues. You can change this any way you want to change it. The only one, like I said, this isn't a legal requirement unless you make it one. Okay, you decide what you want to do, and you can take any of this information from this owner or any other owner into account as far as not being unduly burdensome. But I would urge you to at least keep the requirement at least for however, whether it's for the one registrant or all registrants, whatever you decide. But I think you should ask the owner at least to try to obtain some kind of ID that's proof of a physical address, because if you had a real problem incident, you'd want to be able to help law enforcement figure out what jurisdiction the person was from and how to actually locate them, more than just an email address or a phone number. But again, that's your choice, and you don't have to have an ordinance. You don't have to have any of that. It's what you deem appropriate and what you think is reasonable under the circumstances.
Let me just, Vice Mayor, if I may. Yeah, and we're going to come to you, and then we'll go to you, and then we have Pascal. Let me just say this real quick. A couple of things. So the first thing is, the way I have it written, my suggestion is, the licensee. This is B, right? We're doing the licensee shall at all times maintain current guest registration records which contain the following information about the registered guest: the guest name, dates of accommodation. Hold on one second. The only reason why, and so I think that takes the rest of it away. I think that sounds pretty straightforward. The only reason why I'm kind of like iffy about the home address thing is because, and let me just say this. I know our residents in El Portal are wonderful. We have the best residents. Let me just put that on the record. We have the best residents ever in El Portal. But I'm really concerned about if anything happens where, because if Airbnb or anybody else, I think even when you go on and when you book, through a booking.com and stuff like that, I don't know if they require your home address. And so I'm really concerned about that a little, kind of, just because if we have anybody to where they rent out, short-term rental, they rent out from another individual, and, if that individual, because they have their home address, stalks them, or, you know what I mean, or something like that later on down the line, I just don't want that to come back on the village. Because you have people out there that you never know. I don't know, it might be like the owner of the Airbnb and the guest might get in some type of argument or something like that. I don't want anything where the owner shows up at the guest house with a gun because they got in some type of fight or argument and now they know where they live or something like that. That's the only thing I'm thinking of.
Mayor, I don't see where we have liability. And again, as this gentleman suggested, you don't have to say, it's written that way, but you can change it. You can simply say you don't have to give that information to the village. You can just require the owner to have it in case it were to be needed. But you could say it doesn't have to be turned over to the village. You just keep it for whatever length of time they think is appropriate. That would perfectly well work if that's your preference.
I have one suggestion, which would be to put the phrase, "if no such record exists," at the beginning of this section B. Would that help? Because if a record exists already with Airbnb or Vrbo, whoever the guest is registered with, they used a credit card. That credit card is tied to a home address, or, you know what I'm saying? So there is essentially a record that already exists. So would it be possible to say, if no such record exists?
You could, but I think, honestly, you may be creating more of a burden on the owner. You just say, get this information, keep it. You don't have to say you tell us.
So as written, if they have this information available essentially through the portal that they use for, operating the Airbnb or Vrbo, whatever it is, does that qualify? They have this register. Would that qualify to satisfy this?
I think you're actually putting an increased burden on the owner to try to verify what the site has and what the site did and what information the site would make available or could make available.
So you're saying that they would have to verify that just
how else do they know if they're in compliance? It's probably easier to just say, hey, I need your home address. Well, I'd rather not give it out. Don't worry, I'm not turning it over to anybody. unless, you know, the cops knock on my door. It's just easier to get it than to go through all that, but that's not to say it's not legal to do it the way you suggested it.
Right.
That's the one piece of information we do not get on VRBO or Airbnb is the home
Right.
address. And the only way to get that, like you said, to be sure, is an ID, and I'm not good enough to see if it's a fake ID or not.
Right, and there's probably a
So
lot
I
of,
have
Can
no
I
idea.
just-
So it's a lot of work for us. I don't see the need for it.
there's a lot of single women who
if
would
we
not want to
have-
be giving out
if
their
we-
address, for example.
If we have a rental outside of a platform, like a 3-week or 3-month rental, I'll have all that information, but not when it's on a platform.
Okay.
And just keep in
Say your name and
mind,
address for the
and-
record.
my name Calixto Navarro, 335 Northeast 87th Street. And I do understand, you know, the reason behind this. Keep in mind, I will not accept anybody coming in on Airbnb that they give you the option to accept reservations from people that have ID verified and address, you know, like they have to have 3 verifications in order for you to accept. I won't accept anybody that has no ID into my house. So that's a safeguard that I have. So those people can't even see my property unless they're verified. So, but the interesting thing, Airbnb does not share that information. That's private information.
So they keep, Airbnb keeps it for
Airbnb
themselves.
keeps that, and you know, should there be a problem, you write to Airbnb.
They'll take care
El
of it.
Portal Police notifies them, and then that, you know,
Yeah.
so that's taken care of. But just food for thought for people, and I know it's kind of terrible. You know, the serial killer Gacy. How many dead bodies did he have under his floorboard of his house that he lived there for 30 years? This is not foolproof. I mean, this is not, you know, people are going to commit crimes. People are going to do bad things. So,
Right.
Thank you, I appreciate it.
Just trying to make sure our chief has some tools if he
No, we understand, Attorney Gill, we understand.
Rodolfo Alonso, 199 Northwest 90th Street. It's important to keep in mind that in the state of Florida, all property owners that are running a short-term rental or vacation property are required to have a license issued by the state of Florida. And in order to obtain that license, there are terms and conditions that have to be met. So a lot of the issues that I'm hearing, I already cover. In addition to that, I think it's important to, this ordinance is not exclusively to cover short-term rentals and vacation property that are listed with Airbnb or VRBO. If you own and run a short-term vacation property in the state of Florida, you are required to maintain all information, including home address, for those. However, if you have it listed with one of these platforms, Airbnb, VRBOs, and I believe there are a couple others out there, yes, if there were to be an incident where law enforcement is involved, even a lawsuit where that information must be provided, the platform will provide all that information. So I guess my point is there's really no need to mandate that us host, if you want to call it that, sorry, now have to keep a log with the name and address. All that is covered. That's my
when
point.
it's through a portal,
I'm sorry?
but only when it's through one of the portals.
No,
But if you're not listing the property through a portal, then you are required by the state of Florida to have the address and all the information. So one way or the other, you cover.
You're saying through the license that you acquired through the DVPR, yeah.
Exactly.
Mr. Mayor, just
For the
briefly.
property owners, but not for the renters, I mean, or the guests, right? It's just for the property owners, but not for the, that the state of Florida requires to have that information, not, we're talking here about the people that's renting the unit, right? Right, for the, no, for the applicant, yes, but we're talking here about the renters.
Renters, in order for you, I've been a guest. I am a host.
To the microphone.
I apologize. Rodolfo Alonso, 199 Northwest 90th Street. When you are a guest, you are required. I have stayed in many Airbnbs myself, also VRBO property in the U.S. and outside the U.S. And you are required to provide all this information. Even if to pay with a credit card, which is really the only method available to you to pay, they'll verify the mailing address. So all this is covered. And as far as if, let's say, I don't own the property, but I'm running the Airbnb, I'm managing the Airbnb for somebody else who owns the property, and I apply for the license with the state of Florida, I still have to meet the requirements. Yes, it may not be listed under my personal name. I might have an LLC, but all the information is still being provided. And as far as having a tenant, we're just only covering, my understanding, short-term rentals and vacation property. Any other property owner who's, a landlord will, of course, have all that information besides that they have a tenant living on, in the property. So I'm not quite sure if I answered the question.
What the council person is asking is, his point, not asking really, his point is that you may have to provide that information to the state about you, but the state does not require the information about every renter that you have, and it won't necessarily ask for all of their home addresses. That's what we're trying to get at here.
Got it. It is on the provisions to be granted a license that you must be able to provide the information of your renter. That is one of the requirements. I believe I have a copy of actually the terms and conditions required in order to obtain a license in the state of Florida for a short-term rental. So the answer will be, as the applicant who's been approved to have a license, I am required to be able to provide that information. But if I have my property listed through a portal, then that information has already been provided. And if needed, the portal is obligated to provide as needed.
All right, thank you.
So for the council's benefit, I don't want to take much of the time, but I wanted to give some perspective because I think that a lot of these questions, answers, comments are fundamental to one thing, and it's balance, right? I know that there's some people that want short-term rentals, other people want to protect the neighborhood. If you recall, you're the only one left from that time, but if you recall when we drafted the code, we had a provision for short-term rentals, and it revolved around one thing, and the gentleman earlier mentioned it. It was community. It was having short-term rentals, which we did believe back then, and I still do believe, I used to be a host, that they bring value. But they only bring value when they are respectful of the community and the neighbors. So there needs to be a balance between regulation and the ability to be able to make some, create some source of funding so that, people can pay their mortgages and get some additional funds, etc. The one thing that we added back then, which was then removed for whatever reason, we just took it out, was a provision that would require the property owner to be on the premises. And that basically took out most of the issues of keeping records, and because if the owner is on the premises and you have a guest, that means that you're going to make sure that this guest is respectful, not just of your own property, but also for the neighbors. Hence the ADUs, the ancillary dwelling units, those were supposed to be the type of rentals. The other reason was so that we would have no absentee landlords, corporations that run multiple units within the village, which back in 2015 when we were writing the code, that was exactly what was on the papers all the time, the issues with the Airbnbs. So the owner on the premises was important. It solved some of the issues here of signatures and addresses, because if there is an issue, the owner himself will call the police. The owner himself is the one that will ensure that there is law and order be followed within their property. And if there isn't, they're the ones that are going to make the issue and ensure that there is that community is upheld. And that was at the core of our initial ordinance back in 2015. For your consideration, it is not here, but it's something that we did look at, and it was at the core of the original ordinance back in 2015.
Yeah, thank you. I remember that. I think that I was for removing that also. And the reason why was because I didn't want to punish people who, might be traveling or might do something like that, and they want to, while they're gone, whether it might be a couple of weeks or anything like that, they want to, rent their home out short term, through like an Airbnb. I didn't want to punish those people. So I was one of the votes that did take it out.
Agreed. And I think, maybe the owner be on the premises, it's not as much as the owner have a residence in the premises, right? So if you're traveling, you can still rent it. But the idea was that there would be no absentee landlords, which is where the real issue lies. And I'll tell you, I'm all for short-term rentals. I think that they provide a valuable asset. The other thing, that, by the way, that when the property owner is not on the premises, that means that is a full unit that could potentially go to a more affordable long-term rental, which is, by the way, something else that I want to bring to the council in the future, is the fact that we don't have an affordable housing component in this village. So if everything in Miami-Dade County is Airbnb'd, forget it. People are just going to move out of Miami-Dade County because it is a real issue. So this is bigger than just short-term rentals. That's why, I think it's important, the discussion that you're having.
Thank you very much, Juan. I appreciate that. And I do remember those dates. Before I get back to you, so what I have down here is this, you guys, and let me know what you guys think about it. For letter B, unless maintained through a third-party website or service, comma, the licensee shall at all times maintain current guest registration records which contain the following information about the registered guest. That's the guest name, home address, and dates of accommodation. I got rid of the signature.
And it's just for being just principal guest?
Yeah, so unless maintained by a third-party website or service, because like let's say Airbnb and they all maintain it, right? So if the police have a problem, they can always contact Airbnb with that and they can get that, right? So unless maintained by a third-party website or service, comma, the licensee shall at all times, so if you don't have it on a website or Airbnb, if you don't have it on a third-party website or service, then you have to maintain at all times the current guest registration records, which contain the following information about the registered guest, not each guest, but just the registered guest. That's the guest name, home address, and dates of accommodation. So if it's not on the Airbnb or something like that, then you do have to get the home address. But if it is through like something like that, you don't have to worry about getting the home address. How does that sound for a compromise? You guys think it over. Go ahead. Name and address for the record. The floor is yours.
We own Airbnbs in a couple of municipalities that are around here, but also in El Portal. And we live on one, and we don't live on the other. But it's 2 minutes from our house. And we have neighbors that we talk to, like Calixto lives across the street. If there's an issue, he's gonna call me. We have cameras on the house. I'm obviously concerned that nothing happens there. It's not like I'm an absentee owner there. So to write in here and say it has to be on premise, that I have to live there, kind of kicks out a bunch of stuff. I know that it's something that the gentleman had just said that I had written in before. I know it's not here.
Yeah.
I just wanted to say.
No problem.
I understand the idea of an absentee owner, but I think there's a difference, especially today with technology, to be able to say, I can pull out my phone right now and look at my front door at this house down the street and see what's going on. Although there's no guest in there right now, they just checked out.
This draft says in Miami-Dade County, let me remind you, you could do a time or a distance, but the point that the gentleman makes is if you're nearby and accessible, the point is there if there's a problem, is there someone who can be there within, say, a half hour. You could say an hour instead of a half hour, or you could say a number of miles. But, you know, if you're nearby and accessible, it accomplishes the same thing, basically, that Plus Urbia was urging.
Agreed. The gentleman just was saying that I have to live on property.
Well, he meant.
Thank you.
Yes.
Calixto Navarro, 335 Northeast 87th Street. You know, I was discussing with Pascal that same point as well. And maybe, you know, I don't know, Geller, if you had thought that maybe a requirement would be, because this I do know from other people, I have a Nest camera. And I know other people who put cameras all around the outside of the house and in the front. Okay, so the house is always monitored. You have to disclose, of course, that there are cameras, but maybe that they're required to have, because all that footage is saved, and Ring and Nest and all these portals.
But you still need somebody who can get there, but it doesn't, again, it doesn't have to be
Right.
somebody who lives
Exactly,
there
but if
you're within some radius.
And I have a friend of mine that had a duplex, and what he did, you pay these monitoring services, and they're 24 hours monitoring those cameras. And if there's something that they see suspicious, they pick up the phone and they call. That's number one, like a party or people coming in at odd hours in the night when you should be sleeping. So those are things that maybe instead of doing all this, you just say you're required to have a video camera and disclose, okay? And that's saved. Nowadays with technology, it's saved. Number two, necessarily not living on the premises, because there's other people like Pascal that have different properties throughout the village and surrounding areas. I don't think they should be a requirement. I think you can do whatever you want with your property as long as it's safe. And thirdly, on the issue of, because we keep coming back, community, keeping a home, making sure that if I move into it, I don't want an Airbnb. Once again, I am a realtor. There are people who refuse to do rentals, but they won't do Airbnb. Why? Because it's almost like a full-time job. You have to furnish the property, you have to upkeep it, you have to have a cleaning lady, you have to have linens, and then you have to deal with the people. And there's people who just don't want to deal with people, and you have to understand that. So that does not mean, you know, the logic behind that, oh, because you allow Airbnb, everything's going to be Airbnb. And I'll use this anecdote. A few years back in Cuba, a university student asked the foreign minister of Cuba, who was a guest there, he goes, why all the countries in the world allow their citizens to enter and leave the country freely, and Cubans are not allowed to leave the country freely? You need permission by the government. His answer was, well, if all the Cubans are allowed to travel, you could imagine that planes would be crashing because all 10 million Cubans would be trying to go somewhere, so planes would be crashing in the air. I think we're using that same logic. We're applying that same logic. Not everybody's going to do Airbnb. This is a full-time job. You have to be able to do that. People are just going to want to say, just rent to the house. I'm not furnishing the house. I'm not taking care of it. There's a balance, okay? And that's what it is. Just because people do Airbnb doesn't mean 100%. There's nothing that's 100%.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you, guys. All right, so for B, which was, you know, has been debated, what do you guys think about my sentence? Do I need to say it? Did you guys hear my sentence? Unless maintained through a third-party website or service,
I'm for it.
The licensee shall at all times maintain current guest registration records, which include the following information about the registered guest: the guest name, home address, days of accommodation. Again, you guys know how I feel about the home address thing, but for the vast majority of people, this is not going to apply because the third-party website or service like Airbnb, they have the address. It's just you don't have access unless you need it through the police department or something like that if something goes wrong. Also, the next sentence, where it originally said the registration records shall be kept on file for 3 years. I just took out be kept on file for 3 years. So because, you know, in lieu of the first sentence changing, the registration records shall be kept, the registration records shall be accessible and made available for inspection by village officials during regular business hours or on demand in case of emergency. So you don't have to keep them on file for 3 years. The registration records shall be made accessible. Shall be accessible. And so it could be accessible through, like, Airbnb might keep that, right? So it could be accessible where the homeowner, if there's a emergency or the police department has to do an investigation, they can contact the homeowner. The homeowner can go on Airbnb or you know, and tell them, look, there's a police situation, and you know, we need you to contact this this guest that came during March or whatever it is. So instead of the homeowner having to keep the file for 3 years, the registration record shall be accessible and made available for inspection by village officials during regular business hours or upon demand in case of emergency. How's that sound?
Sounds good.
Sounds pretty good? You gotta be kidding me. Come on up. You gotta be kidding. I'm trying to find a compromise here. I'm changing words around. I'm trying to find a middle ground. You know, it's just some people you can't compromise with.
Pascal
No,
DePool,
I know I'm messing with you.
177 Northwest 90th Street. The only concern I have is if we don't put a time on it, in 10 years, somebody comes and goes, hey, I need this record.
But how
So
do you? But how do you know that? Like, you know, Airbnb won't be able to look back into your records 7 years, or they might have it still. You see what I'm saying?
But
Like,
now I'm liable for it if you don't put a time on it. If you're saying during the stay or 30 days after the stay, I think there needs to be some kind of time frame on it.
what about
The
it?
attorney had said, and I think it's a valid point, if I rent outside the platform, I have all that information.
Yeah.
Because I'm running a background check, I'm running criminal background checks, I'm talking with old landlords, I'm talking with their businesses or the people that employ them. I have all of that on file. And like Roberto had said, or Rodolfo, sorry, had said, you know, I'm required to do that if I'm outside of a platform.
Mhm.
So we do that, that's easy. So I love the fact that you guys are saying if it's not available, I just think it needs to have some kind of time frame.
What time frame would you suggest?
I'd say during the stay or 30 days. Are you coming to me a year later and saying, hey, there's a guy that stayed at your place in 2021 in December that I need a record for now? I mean, if there's a problem, it's gonna be during the stay. Or shortly thereafter.
What about 6 months? What about 6 months?
What about 60 days?
What about 6 months? Because look,
I would say 30 days. I think that's plenty of time.
But listen, Airbnb probably holds it more than 6 months.
I know,
So with them, you probably have it, and then if you, like you said, if you have to get it yourself, you can hold it for 6 months.
I'd love just to have a time frame on it. That's all.
6 months. I would say 6 months.
45 days. Do I get?
I would say 6 months. Compromise for 6 months. I say 6 months. I'm writing 6 months down. Anybody have a problem with 6 months from on the council? We good with 6 months? All right, 6 months. I'm writing 6 months. I have all these notes down after this is over because I have the ordinance in Word. I'll go back, make all the changes, and I'll give it to Attorney Geller so he has the updated changes and things like that. I got you. Okay, the next one, C. We're almost done, you guys, because you look at it's 5, and in the back of 5 is 6. 6 is nothing. 6 is just regular stuff that we don't even have to really go over. Just the top of 6 is the only last thing we have to read. All right. C. No licensee shall knowingly permit any criminal activity or public nuisance to take place in or about the vacation rental. If a licensee knows, is informed of, or suspects that any criminal activity or public nuisance is taking place in the vacation rental, that person shall immediately notify and cooperate with the Village of El Portal, Florida Police Department. That's good. Next. Okay, go ahead. Come on up.
Pascal DePool, 177 Northwest 90th Street. Like I said, you're going to hear that a lot today.
Mm-hmm.
What's the definition of public nuisance? Are we going by the Florida state records, or are we going by El Portal Village Code on a public nuisance?
I didn't think about that.
It has to go by charter, right, Mr. Gerler? Yes.
So in that case, every single violation of village code is a public nuisance.
No.
If I,
No.
It says in the charter. Sorry?
There are definitions of public nuisance. They're governed by case law. Not every violation of the code constitutes a public nuisance. That is not an accurate statement.
Good?
El Portal Village Code says that in the general penalty, section 112, that in violation of any provision in this code shall be deemed a public nuisance.
That would never stand up in court. I didn't write that code provision. I don't know when it dates from, but that would never stand up in court. Okay, you go into court to prove a public nuisance. There's case law that governs it. Not every violation of the code is a public nuisance.
That's just what the charter says. So I'm just asking because the thing that we're trying to avoid, and all of us are, you guys, the people that don't like short-term rentals, and us as owners or hosts, we don't want the party houses, we don't want the violations, we don't want the public nuisances. So I want to make sure that we address in this regulation what a public nuisance is, because I do want to see that, you know, loud noise, multiple cars, all of those things, or higher occupancy than is required or whatever it is, and not just have something that can be read anywhere, in any way. Thanks.
Not every violation of the code is a public nuisance. And to the extent that says that, it's unenforceable.
So is that one of the things that, another reason why we need a charter review? We can address exactly, we can define like in more detailed form what a public nuisance is?
Yes.
Another point for the charter review. There we go, you guys. Y'all get ready to come back 2022. I'm ready. I'm charter review going. I'm moving forward with the charter review. All right, here we go. D, the maximum number of occupants in the vacation rental shall be no more than one person per 150 gross square feet of permitted air-conditioned living space of the dwelling unit for which the license is issued. And in no event shall overnight occupants exceed 2 persons per vacation rental plus 2 persons per bedroom in the vacation rental. The occupancy restriction set forth herein is a maximum occupancy. How you guys feel about that?
They feel great.
You guys feel good about? All right, I didn't know if anybody had a story where, you know, sometimes an extra person might come stay, and all right, here we go. This one right here, I had a question mark for myself. An evacuation diagram identifying all means of egress from the vacation rental and the building in which it is located shall be placed in a conspicuous place near the inside front entrance door of each bedroom within each vacation rental. All right. Okay. The next one. No licensee shall serve or otherwise provide alcohol to any guests. Yeah, you guys have no problem with that? Okay. Next one.
Does anybody have any problem from G to L?
Look, he does, it goes up.
Yep, that's it.
No, number G, each guest shall be, this one I have a problem with. I have my own notes for this one. Each guest shall be provided soap, clean individual bath cloths and towels, and clean linen in good repair. Linens and bath cloths and towels shall be changed between each change of occupants. The only reason why I had kind of like a iffy thing about this was because clean linen in good repair. It's like, who decides?
It's fine, man.
Is that good?
Yeah, it's fine.
Okay. I just didn't want to get picky on people, like who decides what's good repair and what's not. Okay. The vacation rental shall be cleaned, sanitized between occupancies, and all pans and other cooking utensils shall be cleaned and sanitized between occupancies. The name and phone number of the local contact person. Yes, come on up. Is this about the dishes? Is this about the dishes?
Pascal DePoule, Northwest 90th Street, 177th. It's actually about the linens, the bath soap, and the dishes. Those are all regulated by the Florida Department of Professional Regulations. I'm not sure why you guys are picking those out. Is that because code enforcement is gonna come in and check if I have the right soaps here, or if I'm doing my dishes correctly?
They're gonna come in and do a soap check daily.
No, we're good.
I'm
All right,
already-
so,
I'm already regulated on those. I'm not sure why these are in here and not like that I have to have a fire extinguisher there, which is in the same regulation by the same department.
We'll add that.
so yeah, so the only question I had was, in good repair, because that could be up to like somebody's, suggestion or somebody's like opinion.
Yes, ultimately, Mayor, someone would have to make a call on what constituted good repair if there was a serious, legitimate question
Yeah,
as to whether something was in good repair.
yeah.
The gentleman's correct that we might add fire extinguishers too. It is somewhat selective, the ones we've looked at. Some cities regulate some things, some have not. Fire extinguishers are probably a good thing to add.
Yeah. My my only thing is that where I would agree with you, Attorney Geller, is that if it is in the Florida language, then I have no problem with it being in El Portales also. So if it already exists,
It's there
So.
to help notify owners who may be a little less well-informed that these are things that they need to do as well.
Yep.
It's there, really for the protection of owners. We're not imposing any additional requirements.
I have no problem with that.
We're notifying people these are things they need to do.
Is that
I'm just asking who's enforcing it, if it's in our ordinance.
I can't hear you, sir.
he's asking who's enforcing it? Who's going to enforce it?
Our ordinance is being.
It would be the
Our ordinance is enforced by our people, code
enforcement.
police, yes.
So they'll check if I do my dishes correctly.
I mean, look.
No, because the reason I'm asking is
Are
because.
running like a hotel.
I
Put it
know,
this way, so these are just regulations for people to know that it's out there, and we actually protecting the well-being of your guests too. What if you wash the dishes with raw chicken, then it has salmonella, and you put it on their counter for them to use? Nobody knows that. So it's just rules and regulations, pretty much.
I don't disagree
Not,
with you.
Nobody's gonna go knock on your door and say, let me inspect your plates or whatever. I don't know. Might do it, might not.
I don't never disagree with you, and I agree with you, Councilperson Perella. But the only thing that I would say for something like this, Pascal, is if it already exists, this is just showing the detail that already exists. So to me, it's not really, it's kind of like, it's not really nothing to make a big fight over, because if it already exists, it's something that's just there anyway.
but
You know what I
I'm
mean?
required to do it under Florida state law
Yeah.
already, and they have
Yeah, so
jurisdiction
then,
over
so,
it.
so, so then this,
I just don't understand why it's in here.
I understand what you're
then.
saying, but this doesn't hurt.
Know that that's required, but the guy next door who's on his first one may not know it, may look just at our ordinance. He should look at state law, but if this is a reminder to him that he ought to do this so somebody doesn't get sick, it certainly doesn't hurt to have it in our ordinance as well.
Yeah.
It is not imposing any greater restriction on operators.
Yeah, if it already
I
exists.
agree.
then-
My question is about the enforcement, if that's a local thing with us, when it's in our ordinance, because the Florida State Department.
Everyone who has jurisdiction can enforce that. The state health inspector can come in and enforce it. The local code enforcement, Dade County could send people. Everyone with jurisdiction can enforce it.
So it doesn't matter if it's in the ordinance or not for
I
enforcement?
don't agree with that statement,
No,
sir. I think it does matter.
I'm asking, if you would take this out of the ordinance, El Portal could still enforce it?
Yes.
Okay, all right, that's all I'm asking.
Yeah. No, we're good. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you very much. The next one is the name and phone number of the local contact person and the vacation rental licensee shall be posted in a conspicuous place near the entrance of the vacation rental. All right. Name and phone number. Sounds good. And first of all, let me just say thank you for everybody. You guys have been a long night, but thank you for everybody who continue to lend their voice. And, we always try to promote, everybody being able to have a voice, here in the village. So we appreciate everybody being here. And we appreciate the education also, Attorney Geller. Thank you very much. Any licensee who provides food to guests shall comply with all applicable food handling and licensing requirements. Make sure that food is good so they don't get that salmonella. Councilperson Perella, there you go. The next one, all vehicles associated with the vacation rental must be parked within the subject property in compliance with the Code of Ordinances of the Village of El Portal of Florida. And the last one, all guests to the vacation rental shall comply with all applicable village, county, state, and federal laws, rules, regulations, ordinances, and statutes. Okay? And that right there makes everything cover everything. The next one, violations. Any violation of section 5.71 shall be punishable with a fine of up to $250 per violation for the first offense, $500 per violation for the second offense, and $1,000 per violation for a third offense per day, per unit, per violation, and may also be punishable by license suspension or revocation. We good? A village code inspector may also enforce the terms of this section by bringing a case to the special master pursuant to his authority under the village code. In addition, upon showing a substantial violation of section 5-72 or 5-74, any license granted hereunder may be suspended or revoked for cause upon notice and an opportunity to be heard by the special master. In addition to any other remedy available to the village may enforce the terms of this section in law or equity against any violator. The village, by and through its village attorney, Attorney Geller, or police department, Chief Mendez in the back representing, may apply for an administrative search warrant to enter upon the premises of any residence subject to this section. Each day that such violation exists shall constitute a separate and distinct offense. Good. In addition to any other fine or penalty provided for in this section, any person who operates a vacation rental with a license issued under this chapter may be subject to arrest and shall be guilty of a first-degree misdemeanor. So that's the worst-case scenario, you guys. It gets worse to worse, we bring the police in. In addition to any other fine or penalty provided for in this section, it shall be unlawful for any owner, tenant, broker, realtor, agent, or other representative of the owners to hold out or advertise a residential dwelling as a vacation rental if the property is not licensed and provided in this section. A broker or realtor who is found in violation of this regulation shall be subject to business tax receipt, suspension, or revocation. And that's basically the whole thing, you guys. Everything else is technical. We got through it. Done deal. I have all the notes written down. I have it in Word, I believe. I'll make all the changes for the notes that we did tonight. I'm going to ask for a motion in a second and approval in a second. I'll make the changes to this, and then so we'll come back for the second reading in the fourth Tuesday of January. We'll come back with all the changes. Okay? All right. This is for the ordinance, you guys, first reading, moved by Councilperson Lightfoot Ward. Do I have a second for the passage of the first reading of this ordinance? Second by Councilperson Perella. Madam Clerk, is there any last comments from the residents? You guys good? We're good, right?
Are you going to mail it out to everyone?
We will. Yeah, we will. For this, we'll definitely. I got you. I got you covered. As a matter of fact, I might take it and hang it on everybody's door like I did the whole thing. All right. Here we go. Madam Clerk, may I please have a roll call, please?
Roll call. Councilperson Lightfoot Ward.
Yes.
Councilperson Perella.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Herbaum.
Yes.
Mayor Nickerson.
Yes.
Motion passes 4-0.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that. You guys, can I have a motion to table the text notification service till January? It's all good. Do I have a second for table? I have a motion by Councilperson Perella. Do I have a second for tabling the text notification service?
I will second that.
Second that. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed, say nay. All right. So the text notification service, you guys will table until I'll bring that back in January, full council meeting. I've been trying to pass that for a while, Madam Clerk. I'm trying to pass that village-wide text notification service for you guys, so, we can get our information out really fast. So that'll be that. So the next one, you guys, we're gonna move to the sign standards and regulations within the business corridor. So the reason why I brought this forward was because, brought it to committee first. This was because in our business corridor, which is like Northeast Second, in our business areas, we don't have any sign standard regulations right now. And I didn't want anything to happen to where, since we don't have anything on the books, we wake up one day and you're driving down Northeast Second and it's like a bunch of like huge neon business signs, neon light business signs that just kind of take away from the village and things like that. So I'm trying to get some type of regulation for our business signage. This is not a touch or address like, residential signs, residential real estate. It's nothing about that. This is strictly for our business corridors, because I don't want to have to wake up and have crazy business signs in our business corridors that take away from the village. Do you want to come up, Camilla? Or Juan, you guys want to come up to the mic real quick?
Is this a repeat of what we already heard?
You want a motion? You want to pass it, madam? Or you want?
Isn't this the same thing we had?
For the committee? For the committee, we just moved it to council.
Yes, Council.
Hold on a minute. Anything new?
No, but these, Camila Sabla plus Serbia Design, these regulations they keep a lot of the content that was already in the existing chapters for signs, and they do cover signs in residential, actually in all areas. But it does more specifically, yes, it addresses the existing regulations that might not be favorable for the village or the businesses. And so
No, and let me just first reading. I was just getting ready to say that.
Yes.
I was just getting ready to say it's just first reading. We can pass this through. As I said, this is not like the short-term rental. This is something that we're just adding because we just want to make sure that we protect ourselves from stuff that's not on the books in the future. All right, we're like as a council, you guys. When I became mayor, I said we're trying to go back, right, Vice Mayor and Councilperson Pearl, Councilperson Lightfoot Ward, and just there's so many things that we didn't have on the books, Madam Manager, right, that we're trying to go back and do. I mean, for example, I'll just give this really quick example, and then I'm going to ask for a motion in a second. I will give a really quick example. I mean, we didn't have high turnout, comprehensive business permit fees. That's one of the things we did when we came on, right? When I became mayor, we did the business permit fees. And Madam Manager, the day that we passed those business permit fees, because we have all these new developments going in, the Skatebird Park, the Caviezel development, you guys see the restaurant's going to go in where the church is fenced off. That's going to be a restaurant. So we're getting these new businesses coming in. I looked at the books. I said, man, we don't have business permit fees. Madam Manager, the day after we did the final reading on that business permit fee, the day after, they had to come back and they had to come out and give us a check of how many $100,000 was it? It was significant, right? And because it went in, and when we passed it, it went in and went into effect immediately, and we got hundreds of thousands of dollars the next day. So there's a lot of stuff, just like, because in the past, you guys, El Portal, it was always viewed, and, our predecessors just viewed it as a little village, which is good, and we want to keep that. We want to keep that tranquility and serenity, but because it was like that, they didn't, foresee the future of businesses and things like that, so we were losing a lot of money, you guys. You know what I'm saying? So we're just trying to fix things up. This is one of the things we're trying to fix. This is first reading. There will be a second reading in January. This is about sign standards and regulations within the business corridor, so we don't get crazy, huge neon signs all over the place that we don't like in our business corridor. Do I have a motion to pass the first reading of the ordinance for the sign standards? Moved by Councilperson Lightfoot Ward. Do I have a second?
I will second.
Second by Vice Mayor Urban. Madam Clerk, may I please have a roll call, please? Oh, does anybody want to have anything that they want to say? Anybody have anything they want to say? Thank you very much, Madam Clerk. I appreciate that. About the signs in the business corridor. This is just first reading. It'll come back in January. All right? Okay. Hearing none, Madam Clerk, may I please have a roll call? Thank you very much, Madam Clerk.
Roll call. Councilperson Lightfoot Ward. Councilperson Perella. Vice Mayor Erbaum,
Yes.
Mayor Nickerson.
Yes.
Motion passes 4-0.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, you guys, for staying. Juan, Camilla, thank you very much for your time. We appreciate it. Right now, we're going to move on, you guys, to the manager reports. We're going to reports. The manager report.
You guys are going to be really happy with me because I don't have a manager's report.
Well,
I will be putting it on the village website
It's all
next
good.
week.
We appreciate it.
But I do want to mention this, though. The village now has an electrical shuttle
Yes,
bus that takes
yes.
you to and from Brightline Station a few times a day, in the morning and in the afternoon. Please check out the village website, download the app. It's a free service for El Portal residents. Park over here in the village hall, tot lot parking lot, and hop on the electric shuttle. It's a great way to be green. And that concludes the manager's report.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that. You guys will be getting, if you guys are on the email list, if you guys aren't on the email list, make sure you're on the email list. Go to the village website. The bottom of the first page, you can sign up for the email list because the clerk Jacoby either did you email it blasted yet, or are you going to do it tomorrow? You did it today. She email blasted the. Okay, thank you very much. She email blasted a letter I wrote and the flyer for the shuttle, and I will be printing that out. We did get the copies, correct? They're over here. We got all the copies.
I put them on the table.
Thank you very much. I will be passing that out and putting on everybody's doorknob. All right. I do have the plastic door hangers. I will be passing that out, putting on everybody's doorknob in the next couple of days. All right. So be on the lookout for that, so everybody has that information. I'm not going to do, because I did take a long time, and I do appreciate you guys bearing with me with our impromptu town hall, and therefore I'm not going to do a mayor report. Okay. We're going to move right on. Attorney reports.
Yes, I do have approximately a 30-minute village attorney report, which I will proceed to give to myself in the car on the way home.
There you go. There you go. Sounds good. That's it for the reports, you guys. Good and welfare right now. Anybody who has anything that they want to say about anything at all, doesn't have to be just what's on this agenda, about anything at all. You can come up and say the Christmas tree looks horrible. Mayor Nickerson, you need to shave. I know I got to go home and shave, but it's all good. This is your time to come and say right now, name and address for the record, and you have a few minutes. Anybody for anything? Anything at all? Anything at all? All right. That being said, we do have a couple of birthdays to celebrate before we adjourn out of here. So Vice Mayor Erbaum, his birthday has passed, and he tried to hide it from us. But we found out and caught him, and we said we're going to make up for it. And Councilperson Lightfoot Ward's birthday. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Vice Mayor Erbaum, Councilperson Lightfoot Ward. And happy birthday to you. Woo! Good stuff, you guys. Good stuff. Good stuff. This is beautiful. I want to thank everybody for coming out tonight. And I just want to say that hopefully you guys see that we're just trying to fix things. We're trying to put things right. And I just really want to say, hopefully you guys can see that even if we disagree and debate up here, at the end of the day, it's all positive vibes and it's all good feelings and good emotions that we have up here. All right. So I'm glad you guys came out. With that being said, do I have a motion to adjourn? Do a motion by birthday woman, Councilperson Lightfoot Ward. Do I have a second? Second by other birthday man, Vice Mayor Erbaum. All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed say nay. Hearing no nays, the regular council meeting for Tuesday, December 14th is adjourned at 10:51 p.m. Thank you very much, you guys. Thank you.